Yo, Atlas speaking, and welcome to the finale of What If I Was Reincarnated in the Naruto verse as Orochimaru's human experiment. Let the tale begin. Chapter 58, The Infinite Tsukuyomi. A powerful aura swept out across the world as Madara stood where the 10 tails used to be. He laughed hysterically at his success and looked down at his hands, clenching them into a fist that exuded raw power. Several black truth-seeking orbs floated behind him and a black long staff appeared by his side. After taking a moment to observe his new form as the 10 tails Jinchuriki, he looked up to the sky and saw large bright white lights ascending to the heavens. Madara smirked, saying to himself, well now, it appears someone was actually able to stop the caster of the reanimation. Not bad, however, it's too late. I already revived and have become the 10 tails Jinchuriki. It is time to bring peace to this broken world. Just as Madara finished speaking to himself, a large torii gate fell from the sky and landed right on top of him, pinning him to the ground. Soon after, several more large torii gates fell and piled on top, seeking to restrain him, as Hashirama's voice could be heard, "Sage art, gracious deity gates." The next voice to be heard was Ashina's as he shouted, "Adamantine sealing chains." Gold chains erupted from his back as they rushed out to bind Madara's limbs. Madara simply scoffed in amusement and flexed his muscles, instantly breaking the chains apart and blowing the torii gates into smithereens. Hashirama, Tobirama, and Ashina frowned at how easily Madara broke free of their techniques. Madara simply stood unmoving as he stared at the remaining 3 reanimated shinobi and smiled. So, after the reanimation was released, you 3 regained control of your bodies and rescinded the contract seal of the reanimation on your end. I had a feeling that would be the case, but you're all too late. I have already become the 10 tails Jinchuriki. You 3 don't have the power to stop me anymore. Just as Madara finished talking, he widened his eye in surprise, sensing an attack aimed right at him, and quickly raised up his black staff, blocking a sage-powered ice dragon jutsu. He then quickly jumped up and floated in the air, successfully dodging hundreds of sharp bone protrusions that sprung up from the ground beneath him. Madara turned to his left and saw a disappointed and anxious-looking Haku and Kimimaro. He smirked and praised, "So, you 2 are still alive? Not bad attacks. I had monitored your situation earlier. Didn't you seal away Ashina? Did you unseal him when the reanimation was released so that he could help you all against me? Not a bad idea, but futile." Madara quickly turned his head in Sasuke and Naruto's direction, completely surprised. "HM? Those 2 aren't dead yet?" At that very moment, Sasuke and Naruto opened their eyes and slowly got back up on their feet with looks of determination on their faces. Sakura breathed out a sigh of relief, but quickly turned to catch Tsunade's frail old frame as her body slowly fell to the ground. Just as Sakura caught her master, a white light quickly appeared and disappeared as it vanished inside of Tsunade's body. In mere moments, Tsunade's old wrinkly body began softening up again into bright, healthy, and smooth skin. Sakura looked down in confusion as she witnessed her master, who was supposed to be dead at that moment after using a sacrificial revival jutsu, become reinvigorated with life. Tsunade slowly opened her eyes with a weary look and coughed. She lay still and weak in Sakura's arms, despite no longer looking like an old woman. She looked Sakura in the eye and spoke hoarsely and weakly, "Sakura. It's okay. It seems my time hasn't quite come yet. It appears that Izaya was able to stop Kabuto and release the reanimation jutsu. Thanks to that, I got to meet Dan. He used his ghost transformation jutsu and arrived just in time, sharing his chakra with me. I won't die just yet, but my body is physically exhausted. Don't worry about me. Go!" "Stop, Madara. We can't let him win." Tears streamed down Sakura's face. Her heart pounded hard against her chest as a feeling of warmth and thankfulness erupted inside of her. She simply nodded and slowly laid Tsunade back down on the ground and watched Tsunade close her eyes to rest. Sakura clenched her fist at the memory of how desperate and helpless she felt when she stared at her dying master's form by her side. A surge of power welled up inside her at this instant as she wiped away her tears and walked over to Sasuke and Naruto standing by their side. At that moment, a diamond tattoo appeared on her forehead, showing her mark of the complete 100 healings technique. Sasuke glanced at Sakura and hesitated for a moment. Sakura. Before he could finish his sentence, Sakura simply nodded and replied, "It's okay, Sasuke-kun. I'm alright. Just now I reached full capacity. I won't sit back behind the lines anymore and watch the people I care about get hurt." Naruto gritted his teeth and stared daggers at Madara as he quickly entered Sage mode and shouted, "That's right. Let's finish this." Madara smirked in contempt. HMPF. So the Hokage sacrificed her life force to save Naruto, and that girl there was able to restore Sasuke. But what can the three of you hope to accomplish? Naruto, you don't even have the power of the tailed beasts inside of you anymore. Naruto scowled and quickly shouted, "Sage Art, Raisin Shuriken." Madara scoffed and threw out a Truth Seeker orb at Naruto's attack. At that moment Haku appeared in the air and shouted, "Sage Art, Ice-style Freezing Mist Jutsu." A large icy mist filled the air and made its way to Madara, who scoffed and flew off into the distance at great speeds, dodging Haku's attack. Madara quickly performed a sharp turn in the air and shot out towards Haku, but was intercepted by Tobirama, who struck out with a kunai. Madara simply swung his staff and broke off Tobirama's right arm before kicking him away. That gave Kimimaro enough time to arrive by Madara's side, shouting, "8 extreme fists, first fist of destruction." Boom! Madara quickly lifted his left arm to block the punch, but the force of the attack was powerful enough to send him flying hundreds of meters, crashing to the ground. Sasuke arrived behind Madara and struck out with his sword-coated Chidori, only for him to strike Madara's limbo shadow. Before Madara could pierce Sasuke's body with his staff, Sasuke stared at a piece of rock with his Rinnegan and switched places with it just in time, causing Madara to widen his eyes in surprise. Naruto, Sasuke, Hashirama, Tobirama, Ashina, Haku, Kimimaro, and Sakura stood together as they stared warily at Madara. Just as Madara turned to stare back at them, thousands of different kinds of ninjutsu blasted him on the spot from members of the Shinobi Alliance. The blast of all the ninjutsu lasted for a good 10 minutes before everything calmed down again, only the results of the attack left everyone baffled. Madara stood in the same exact spot, completely unscathed and unamused. Shikamaru clicked his tongue as a drop of cold sweat dripped down the side of his forehead and remarked, "What the hell is this guy?" He took a full-on attack from tens of thousands of shinobi, but nothing happened. Tobirama narrowed his eyes and responded, "The Alliance just now used pure ninjutsu. When Haku, Naruto, and my brother attacked, they used Senjutsu. Senjutsu seems like it's able to affect him. When Kimimaro attacked, he used Taijutsu. It seems like Taijutsu is also effective against Madara. Looks like our only options are Senjutsu or Taijutsu. I'll use my Flying Thunder God to support everyone as best as I can." Madara stared amusedly at everyone as if he were watching a comedy show. "You all should simply stand down and obey. If you do, then you don't have to die. If you don't, then I'll end your life here and now. Why fight against me when I shall bring about world peace?" Naruto gritted his teeth. "World peace? You're simply deceiving everyone, including yourself. This won't bring peace. Your plan is no different than imprisonment." Madara sneered in response. "Uzumaki Naruto. You always have ridiculous things to say, don't you? Imprisonment? No. What I do will bring freedom." Sasuke ignored both Madara and Naruto as he channeled his Chidori into his katana and rushed out to fight Madara. After exchanging several moves against Madara, Sasuke shouted, "Naruto, forget trying to reason with him. You're only wasting your time. You met with the old sage too, didn't you? We have to work together to stop him." Naruto snapped out of his thoughts after hearing Sasuke's words and got ready to join Sasuke. Ashina furrowed his brow and turned to Naruto. "Madara called you Uzumaki Naruto. You are a member of the Uzumaki clan?" Naruto nodded. "That's right. My mom was from the Uzumaki clan." Ashina smiled and nodded his head in approval. "To think that I'd see another Uzumaki again in my lifetime. Senjutsu and Taijutsu work, but perhaps Fuinjutsu works as well. Everyone, help distract Madara for me." I'll use a few ninjutsu to defeat him. Sasuke narrowed his eyes as he stared at Madara. Fine. We'll try your plan, but we have to be wary of Madara's shadow. Naruto, can you see the other Madara by his side? Naruto shook his head. No. But I can sense it. Sasuke nodded. Then you and I will take care of the Shadow Madara while everyone else helps Ashina seal the real Madara away. Everyone nodded in agreement while Madara smirked amusedly. Heh! Do you seriously think you lot stand a chance against me? You should all just stand down obediently and let the reform of the world begin. No matter, since you cling so desperately onto hope, then let me crush the last pieces of hope you have left. Whoosh! Both sides instantly began engaging in a fierce clash. Bang! Boom! Bang! Swish! Madara effortlessly dodged, blocked, parried, and struck as if he were a parent whipping his children. Boom! Tobirama crashed into a large boulder as Hashirama and Ashina crashed into large wooden branches. At that moment Sakura finished healing Kimimara's injuries and chakra. Haku quickly activated the hidden mist jutsu obscuring Madara's vision. Before Madara knew it, Kimimaro appeared once more by his side using the 8th breath of the 9 dragons breathing technique and shouted, 8 extreme fists, first fist of destruction. Boom! Just before his fist could connect against Madara's back, Madara successfully blocked the attack with a truth-seeking shield. However, the force of the punch that was fueled by the power of Sage Chakra was strong enough to just crack the shield. The residual force of the punch was enough to send Madara flying through the air for several dozens of meters. Hashirama quickly used that opportunity to enter Sage mode and created several large Sage-powered wood dragons to ensnare Madara, but Madara easily escaped the technique. He arrived before the allied shinobi forces and began an immediate massacre. Just as Madara struck out with his fist towards Hinata, Neji and Hanabi quickly arrived before her and successfully blocked Madara's punch. However, the force of the attack sent all 3 of them crashing into a giant boulder. Madara scoffed at their futile attempt to stop him and said condescendingly, "Foolish." Hanabi coughed up blood as she rested against the boulder, and just as Madara was about to turn around she retorted, "Why?" Madara stared at Hanabi, who was seriously injured, and responded, "Why what?" Hanabi glowered at Madara. "Why would you think it foolish to protect someone we care about?" Madara smirked. "Heh. If I had used just a bit more strength in that punch, all 3 of you would have died. You possess the Byakugan and should have been able to see that. If you had used that opportunity to coordinate a strike at my Tenketsus instead, you might have been successful. Although it wouldn't have greatly affected me, you wasted a chance opportunity to weaken me for the sake of saving that girl's life." Hanabi smiled proudly as blood seeped out of the corner of her mouth. "And I would gladly do it all over again. To give my life for someone I care about. Do you even know what that feels like?" Madara recalled his little brother Izuna from long ago, but quickly snapped out of his thoughts and replied, "I know all too well. You have heart and a seemingly strong will. Even though people like you are the ones who should be able to understand what it is I am trying to do the most, instead you all refuse to see the good that I will bring to the world and continue to stand against the peace I will bring that prolongs everyone's suffering. People like you should be killed. Then the resistance can end." Before Madara could strike a fatal blow, the second Hokage jumped down from the sky and struck with his kunai. Madara expertly dodged and gripped Tobirama by the throat while Sakura quickly grabbed Hinata, Hanabi, and Neji and dashed out to a safer range. Madara squeezed tighter around Tobirama's neck. "Tobirama, you were the one to deal the fatal blow to Izuna. It's a shame you aren't alive. It's not as satisfying to destroy your reanimated corpse as it would have been your actual live body." Tobirama smirked and gripped onto Madara's arm tightly as he responded, "Heh. Madara, you're too overconfident." Mutually multiplying explosive tags jutsu. Thousands of paper bomb tags floated off of Tobirama's body and completely surrounded Madara as the bombs began to go off, creating a giant explosion for a good 10 minutes. A large cloud of dust erupted in the area, obscuring everyone's vision and prevented them from knowing the results of the second Hokage's attack, but Sasuke quickly shouted, his shadow retreated. Naruto also chimed in, "It's not over yet. I can still feel his chakra." The dense dust cloud began to clear up, revealing Madara, who remained unharmed within the blast radius, whilst Tobirama's reanimated corpse was slowly beginning to reform. Hashirama quickly arrived behind Madara and grappled him in a body lock as he shouted, "Now Ashina." Ashina took that moment of opportunity to weave the signs of snake, boar, ram, hare, dog, rat, bird, horse, and snake. He clapped his hands and shouted, "Sealing Jutsu, Reaper Death Seal." Madara narrowed his eyes after hearing the name of the jutsu Ashina shouted and had his shadow appear before him. However, Sasuke activated the power of his Rinnegan, switching Madara's shadow with his sword just in time as the invisible hand of the Reaper summoned from Ashina's jutsu passed by and sunk its claw right into Madara's chest. Ashina smiled at his success. However, he frowned a second later, noticing that he couldn't pull out Madara's soul. Madara remained unmoved and unfazed while held in Hashirama's body lock as he looked down at his chest where the Reaper's hand was gripping tightly. He smirked and said, "So this is what the Reaper looks like. A fine technique indeed. Unfortunately, Ashina, you do not possess the physical or mental strength to rip out my soul. Your attempt is futile. Still, I commend you for developing a jutsu that could manage to pierce my body and touch my soul. That alone deserves praise." Ashina scowled in the distance and retorted, "I had hoped to take your life with this jutsu. And perhaps you could have before I became the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. The cost of using such a jutsu must be quite high." "The cost is my soul." Madara smirked. "Then you've sacrificed your soul in vain." Ashina gritted his teeth and shook his head. "No! Though I cannot take your life, there is still something I can take from you." Just as Ashina finished his sentence, he mustered all of his strength and willpower and ripped out 9 small pieces of chakra from within Madara's body. "Seal!" Ashina gasped as he felt his entire soul go numb. He was slowly losing consciousness as he felt his soul begin to slowly enter the belly of the Reaper. He focused all his mental willpower to hold steadfast on his soul, preventing the Reaper from sealing him away in its belly, and shouted, "Naruto! Come here! Quickly!" Naruto didn't waste any time and quickly arrived before him. "Ashina!" Naruto exclaimed worriedly. Ashina smiled as he gripped Naruto's arm to support his body from falling over. The paper surrounding his reanimated corpse began to slowly crumble away as his soul was continuously being dragged away inside the Reaper. He stared at Naruto in the eyes and spoke in his old and raspy voice full of wisdom and knowledge. "Naruto, I'm glad that I was once more able to meet a member of my own clan. I'm glad that to this day and age, the Uzumaki lineage still lives on. The price of using the Reaper Death Seal is the sealing of my own soul inside the belly of the Reaper. I couldn't take Madara with me, but I was able to rip out a small portion of each of the 9-tailed beasts inside of him. They won't do anyone any good if those pieces are sealed inside of the Reaper. Before my soul is completely sealed, let me pass on their power to you. Use it to defeat Madara." Without waiting for Naruto to respond, Ashina placed his palm over Naruto's abdomen and said with his dying breath, "Sealing Jutsu, 8 trigrams seal." A bright light erupted near Ashina's palm, and right as it dissipated, his reanimated corpse was no more. His soul sealed away inside the belly of the Reaper. At the same time that Ashina was transferring the chakra of the tailed beasts into Naruto, Tobirama's body completely reformed, only for it to be immobilized by black receiver rods Madara created. He also gripped onto Hashirama and created several black receiver rods to pierce into Hashirama's body, preventing Hashirama from moving, and absorbed the sage chakra inside of him. "Ku! You wanted my sage chakra all along, didn't you?" Hashirama said in a strained voice. Madara smirked. "That's right. Your wood style is essential to my plan." "HM. Is that all there is to it? Sage chakra is pretty easy to handle, it seems." He dropped Hashirama's body down to the ground and walked over to where Naruto was, who had regrouped with Sasuke, Haku, and Kimimaro. "It seems Ashina was able to return a portion of the tailed beast's chakra to you, Naruto. And your sage chakra feels familiar. You were somehow able to unlock the power of the Six Paths Sage Chakra. As for you Sasuke, you somehow awakened the Rinnegan. Haku can utilize Sage Mode and Kimimaro is skilled in Taijutsu. You four are an interesting lineup. Only you four have a chance to defeat me. Madara then turned his head over to look at the Shinobi Alliance in the distance and scoffed at them. He placed his hands together and said, "Divine, Deep Forest Emergence." The instant Madara activated his jutsu, everyone felt the entire earth shake. Just as Naruto and the others were about to dash out to stop Madara, they were met by hundreds and thousands of large wooden tendrils. Haku jumped backwards and dodged to his left as his hand was slightly grazed by one of the wooden branches. He felt his chakra drain away and was immediately alarmed, so he shouted aloud, "Guys, be careful. The branches can absorb your chakra. It's over if you get trapped." Naruto dodged a few branches and shouted back, "Damn it. What is this jutsu? It's on a completely different scale than the first Hokage's or Izaya's." Sasuke slashed one of the large wood branches in half, responding, "You can't judge Madara by the same standards. He's absorbed the complete 10 tails. The amount of chakra he has is on a different level." The entire ordeal lasted only 5 minutes, but in that time frame the entire world was completely changed. Some people were luckier than others and were able to escape the clutches of the wooden branches, others however weren't. Madara smiled as he floated in the sky looking down at his work. Just as he was admiring his jutsu, Sasuke dashed through the air and slashed down at Madara's neck with his sword. Ting! Sparks flew in the air as Madara intercepted the attack with his black staff. Swish! Madara quickly disengaged from Sasuke and turned his body to parry 2 large bone spears from Kimimaro before quickly diving towards the ground to avoid a sage-powered lava-style, Raisin Shuriken and Ice Dragon Jutsu from Naruto and Haku. Just as Kimimaro was about to dash forward and fight Madara in close combat, Naruto yelled out, "Wait! Watch out for Madara's shadow!" Before Kimimaro could be struck by Madara's shadow, Sasuke activated his Rinnegan's power and switched places with him, effectively stopping Madara's sneak attack. The four of them continued their fight against Madara for the next few minutes, exchanging several deadly jutsus. However, neither side seemed to be able to gain the upper hand. Just as both sides disengaged momentarily and created some distance between each other, a white Zetsu clone emerged from the ground beneath Madara, who quickly commented, "Finally. Took you long enough. Zetsu." He quickly grabbed the Rinnegan in Zetsu's hand and placed it inside his right eye socket. Zetsu apologized as he responded, Sorry. It takes time, you know. To travel all the way to where Nagato's corpse is and then come all the way back. But you seem to be doing fine anyways. Look, you already became the 10 Tails Jinchuriki. HMPF. Now then. Since I now have both eyes, I'm at full power." Sasuke and Naruto frowned as they noticed that after Madara recovered his remaining eye, the amount of shadows he could create went from 1 to 4. Haku. Kimimaro. Be careful. Now that Madara got his other eye back, there are 4 shadows of Madara instead of 1. Naruto warned. Madara smirked as he stood opposite Naruto and the others and mocked, "Naruto. It seems you wasted the chance Ashinen gave you. You may have received a portion of chakra from all 9-tailed beasts back, but it was a very small amount. You've already nearly exhausted all of their chakra. What more can you hope to accomplish? And you, Sasuke. You somehow awakened the Rinnegan, but you're nothing more than an infant compared to me. You lack the power of a sage. Haku, you only have the power of a regular sage. Kimimaro, I recognize you as the greatest of all taijutsu users I have ever encountered, but the strength you possess is not enough to kill me. On top of that, you and Haku can't even detect my shadows." The 4 of them frowned as they listened to Madara's comment. They wanted to refute him, but they remained silent since there was a hint of truth to what Madara said. Naruto finally had a chance to take a quick glance around at the newly fashioned terrain from Madara's jutsu and was instantly horrified at what he saw and sensed. What? How could this happen? So many people died. Sasuke frowned and responded, "That divine, deep forest emergence jutsu. Madara used absorb chakra from everything it touched. The people who got snatched up in the branches had their chakra drained to death. Haku panicked as he quickly thought, what about Hanabi? Big brother would never forgive himself if anything happened to her. Fwish! At that instant everyone widened their eyes in momentary surprise as three figures appeared before them. Haku and Kimimaro were the first to recover from their shock as they both exclaimed, Big brother! Izaya! Naruto stuttered a bit as he stared at the familiar back of the fourth Hokage. D-Dad? Minato smiled as he turned around to face Naruto. Naruto. I wish it was under different circumstances that we're able to meet like this, but I'm glad we get to meet again. Sasuke stared at Orochimaru and sneered, to think that you're still around after everything that happened. Orochimaru lightly chuckled in response to Sasuke's comment. Hee. It's been a long time. Sasuke-kun. You've gotten quite strong. To think that you were even able to awaken the Rinnegan. Well, no need to worry. I'm here to assist you all in stopping Madara and put an end to this war. Madara waited for everyone to finish their greetings before taking a good look at the three new faces and commented, the Flying Thunder God Jutsu? That must be how you three were able to arrive here so quickly and without notice. Let me guess, one of you must be the shinobi who stopped the reanimation jutsu. Just as Madara finished speaking, I removed my blindfold, revealing both of my eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, and stared warily at Madara, thinking to myself, so he already recovered both of his Rinnegan and activated the divine, deep forest emergence. This isn't looking too great for us. I anxiously scanned the battlefield for Hanabi with my senses. My heart pounding loudly, hoping in all the world that she was okay. I had never been so nervous before about finding out the results of my sense scanning, but at this moment it felt like a mountain was weighing down on my chest. I hoped and prayed with all my being that the result of my sense scanning would show that Hanabi was alive and had escaped Madara's jutsu. Ba-dump. 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 My heart continued to beat hard in my chest, but then a feeling of relief washed over me. I felt Hanabi's presence. She was laying down on the ground beside Hinata, Niji, and Sakura in the distance. I breathed out the breath that I didn't know I was holding, but in the next instant I furrowed my brow as I sensed that Hanabi was injured and had a few broken ribs. I returned my attention to Madara and clenched my fist in anger, forcing myself not to attack him rashly. Before anyone could make a move, I quickly turned to the fourth Hokage and said, Lord Fourth, please transfer your half of the nine tails to Naruto. Minato nodded and walked over to Naruto, placing his hand on his abdomen to begin the transfer. I also quickly walked over to everyone and marked them with my Flying Thunder God seal. Madara simply stood still and watched everything play out unconcernedly. Just as Minato finished the transfer and I finished marking everyone with my seal, Madara asked, well then. Finished? If so, shall we begin the final battle? The one battle that will decide the fate of the world. Sasuke ignored Madara and quickly chimed in, Izaya. Only Senjutsu, Taijutsu, or the Six Paths chakra work against him. He also has 4 shadows of himself that only Naruto and I can detect. Be careful. I nodded in appreciation for Sasuke's quick summary of Madara's unique abilities and weakness. Of course, I had also expected this to be the case from what I could remember of Madara's abilities in my past life. I took a quick sweep of the surrounding area and frowned after I couldn't find who I was looking for. I turned to Orochimaru and Minato to address them. Orochimaru. Since you can't enter Sage mode with your body, you won't be of much help here. There is someone you and Lord Fourth need to search for. Black Zetsu. He has to be around here somewhere. Find him and kill him if you can. He's a hidden danger. I'll stay here and support Sasuke, Naruto, Haku, and Kimimaro with my Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Orochimaru widened his eyes in surprise and interest. Black Zetsu? He was never a fighter within the Akatsuki. He specializes in infiltration and information gathering. To think that he's still around. Very well. I'll scour the battlefield for him. Minato nodded and turned to Naruto. Be careful. I can sense how strong Madara is. Even when I was far away. Izaya has already explained everything to me beforehand. I'll trust this battlefield to you. Naruto. I'm proud to be your father. Naruto grinned happily as he felt a new surge of strength growing inside him. Strength fueled from the confirmation of his father's love and acceptance of him. Naruto clenched his fists and immediately activated the power of his Nine Tails chakra cloak along with his Six Paths chakra. The combination of the two being activated at the same time immediately allowed Naruto to manifest several Black Truth Seeker orbs of his own. Madara narrowed his eyes at Naruto's new transformation and also stared curiously at me. Interesting. The Nine Tails chakra resonating with the Six Paths chakra lets Naruto manifest his own Truth Seeker orbs. And curiously enough, it would seem that Sasuke wasn't the only one who awakened the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. The amount of people who awaken the Eternal Mangekyo throughout history can all be counted on one hand. Without wasting any more time with words, Madara dashed towards us with the intent to kill. I frowned and took note of Madara's physical prowess as he arrived before us in less than a second. Bang! Madara swung his staff at Naruto, who transformed one of his Truth Seeker orbs into a black long staff to counter. Sasuke immediately activated his Chidori and struck at Madara's face, to which Madara responded by sidestepping and jumping backwards before Kimimaro could impale him with a sharp bone spear. Haku arrived behind Madara and shouted, "Sage Art, Ice-style Ice Prison Jutsu." Madara quickly placed his hands together and shouted, "Sage Art, Storm-style Fawn of Light." A purple laser beam of condensed lightning quickly shot out from his mouth and ripped apart the ice prison as well as Haku's body, which turned into an ice clone. As Madara was temporarily distracted by defending against Haku's attack, I dashed forwards with a palm strike, hoping to mark him with my Flying Thunder God Seal. Madara took note of my approach and threw out a Truth Seeker orb straight at me, to which I responded by creating a shadow clone that quickly intercepted the attack and teleported the orb away with itself. Just as I was about to reach Madara, I disappeared and reappeared next to Sasuke as he used his Rinnegan to replace me with a boulder. It was at that moment that the boulder was instantly crushed into dust in the spot I was just at prior. I frowned. There was a shadow there, wasn't there? I said rhetorically. Sasuke nodded. I clicked my tongue and thought, how troublesome. Only Sasuke and Naruto can deal with Madara's shadows. With their Six Paths chakra they can damage Madara, and Haku can use Senjutsu to deal damage to Madara. Kimimaro can use his advanced taijutsu techniques to deal damage to Madara as well. I haven't learned any Senjutsu yet, and my body can't bear the burden of the advanced taijutsu techniques that Maro uses. We have to take down Madara before Black Zetsu turns him into Kagaya. The thing is, I don't see the remnants of the Divine Tree. That means Obito never became the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, and he never summoned the Divine Tree by using the Ten Tails. That means Madara has become nearly perfect. When Madara absorbed the Ten Tails, that means he basically absorbed the Divine Tree itself already. He didn't have to take in the Ten Tails and the Divine Tree separately. If Black Zetsu appears, then he'll immediately facilitate the return of Kagaya. That'll be a huge mess. I quickly dodged an attack from Madara, and just as one of Naruto's Rasen Shuriken flew past him, I activated the power of Kuninoto Kotachi, tripling the size of Naruto's attack to ensure it would hit Madara. Madara was instantly shocked at the sudden change and expertly defended himself by switching places with one of his shadows. I quickly activated my Susanoo and had it unsheathe Masamune to strike him down. Madara responded by raising up his staff and blocking the sword strike. Boom! A huge force of wind was generated from the impact point, causing Madara to become shocked once again. A good blade! For it to make contact with my Truth Seeker staff and not break means that your Susanoo's blade is not an ordinary weapon. What is it? I ignored Madara's comment and kept on striking down at Madara. However, I was inwardly elated as I thought, no way. I tried using my spirit weapon on a whim to see if it would work against Madara, and it actually did. I may not have Senjutsu or overwhelming taijutsu, but at least Masamune has a chance to deal some damage to him. The 5 of us continued to press on our attack as craters upon craters of destruction were formed as evidence of our chaotic battle. As the fight slowly dragged on, we started becoming more accustomed to Madara's attack patterns and began coordinating our attacks better and better, putting more and more pressure on Madara. However, this also worked against us as Madara also started to become more and more accustomed to his newfound power as well. Just as Madara dodged an attack from Naruto, I quickly appeared behind him and prepared to mark him with my Flying Thunder God Seal, but just as I was about to succeed, he quickly turned and gripped me by the throat. "Guh!" I groaned as Madara tightened his hold around my neck. I quickly gripped his arm and marked him with my Flying Thunder God Seal before teleporting him by Sasuke's side. Sasuke used that chance to infuse his 6 Paths chakra into his Chidori and struck Madara. I quickly appeared by Naruto's side and teleported him next to Madara as Naruto struck Madara with a magnet-style Rasengan infused with a sealing formula. I coughed heavily as I massaged my sore throat and did my best to recover a normal breathing rate. I frowned as I watched Madara replace himself with one of his shadows in order to escape the seal made from Naruto and Sasuke. Madara flew into the air out of our reach and lifted his hand towards the sky, condensing several tens of black masses of gravity cores, and said, "You lot are very skilled to have lasted this long against me. You 5 are stronger than the 5 Kage. However, I've delayed long enough." Catastrophic planetary devastation. In but mere moments, the ground all around us was ripped apart and floated into the sky around the dense gravity cores, forming several tens of large meteorites as they began falling back down towards us with incredible speed. Naruto quickly formed several large-tailed beast bomb Rasenshurikens to destroy the meteorites, while Sasuke activated his perfect Susanoo to slice the meteorites apart. I gritted my teeth as I had a feeling that Madara was about to activate the infinite Tsukuyomi, so I quickly activated the Flying Thunder God and teleported to Madara's side. Right as I appeared, he struck out with a black receiver rod. Just before it could hit me, I activated the power of my left Mangekyo and shrunk down to a small fraction of my true size, successfully avoiding the attack. As I prepared my next move, Madara smirked and shouted, "Almighty push!" I widened my eyes in alarm and cursed as I was instantly pushed back down towards the ground. "Damn it!" Madara looked down at his arm and noticed a sealing mark imprinted on it. He smirked to himself. He placed a Flying Thunder God Seal on me without me noticing. Impressive. His hands glowed a light green color as he sliced off his arm without batting an eye. In mere seconds, his body regenerated and formed another arm good as new. He then proceeded to fly higher and higher as he approached the moon and ripped off his horns, revealing a third eye containing a red-colored Rinne-Sharingan. Ha ha ha. Now, become one with me. Infinite Tsukuyomi. Activate. The moon instantly took on the reflection of Madara's Rinnegan and began to cast a penetrating light that could pierce through all things. Chapter 59, Otsutsuki Kagaya. As I fell back down to the ground, I took note of Madara's Rinne-Sharingan being reflected off of the moon. Damn it! I cursed aloud as the light from the moon began to shine down upon the entire world. I looked over to where Sasuke, Naruto, Haku, and Kimimaro were gathered as Sasuke's perfect Susanoo quickly shielded them from the light of the infinite Tsukuyomi. I gritted my teeth in frustration as the image of Hanabi surfaced in my mind. I'm sorry, Hanabi. Just hang in there for a little while longer. Before I could succumb to the effects of the infinite Tsukuyomi, I quickly teleported to Sasuke's side safely inside of his perfect Susanoo. Sasuke turned to look at my disheveled form and commented, "You made it." Naruto quickly chimed in, "What's going on? We've got to stop Madara. Sasuke, let us out." Sasuke shook his head. "No." Madara activated the infinite Tsukuyomi. The light from his jutsu can penetrate through all shadows and objects. Everyone in the outside world is currently being placed under his Jinjutsu. Only the power of my Rinnegan can counter his jutsu. Naruto, I know you met with the Sage of 6 Paths and received a portion of his power. You wield half of his sealing jutsu and I wield the other half. If you or I are defeated, then that'll truly be the end of the world. So for now, just sit tight. We have to wait for Madara's jutsu to pass before we can re-engage him. Naruto gritted his teeth in frustration but said no more. I also clenched my fist in anxiousness as I thought, damn. The final step to reviving Kaguya has been completed. With the infinite Tsukuyomi in place, everyone will be ensnared by the divine, deep forest emergence technique. The only missing link is Black Zetsu, who only needs to facilitate Kaguya's return by sacrificing Madara. And we're all just sitting ducks here. Haku started pacing back and forth as he said, there has to be something we can do, right? We can't just sit around here and wait as everyone gets trapped in Madara's jutsu, do we? I let out a frustrated sigh as I took a seat on the ground. Unfortunately, we can't do anything right now. Only the power of the Rinnegan can resist the light of the infinite Tsukuyomi. Which means only Sasuke can move about freely to fight against Madara, but we need Sasuke's Susanoo to remain and shield us from the light. Especially Naruto, since Naruto is crucial to defeating Madara. The only thing we can do right now is rest and recover as much strength as we can so we can be prepared to face Madara once his jutsu passes. Everyone frowned at how powerless we all were at that moment but began to focus on recovering as much strength as we could. Madara stared down at the world and smiled at his success only to be surprised when he saw Sasuke's Susanoo acting as a protective shield against his jutsu. Oh! The light of the infinite Tsukuyomi can't penetrate through Sasuke's Susanoo? Is it because he possesses the Rinnegan as well? The seconds turned into minutes and minutes into hours. The five of us sat in complete and utter silence in the dark as we waited and waited and waited until finally, Sasuke stood up. Get ready. The time limit of his jutsu is about to end. We all nodded and prepared to re-engage in a fierce battle. The light from the moon slowly became dimmer and dimmer and dimmer until finally, the light of the infinite Tsukuyomi ceased. No later than the moment that the last light of the jutsu dissipated did Sasuke release his Susanoo, and the five of us prepared to charge towards Madara. Madara smirked in amusement as he floated back down to the ground in the distance and commented, "You five are quite troublesome. But there are only 5 of you left in the world. I, the savior of this world, shall be the one to dispose of you." Sasuke narrowed his eyes as he said, "Be careful. His 4 shadows have us surrounded." Madara stood unamused as he commented, "I won't allow you all to do anything anymore. I have just severed the karmic cycle of this world and freed humankind from their suffering and pain." Naruto clenched his fist and shouted, "But this is all just a lie." Madara scoffed at him. "Naruto, you are the one interfering with everyone's happiness. Just look at this world now. All fighting between shinobi has ceased. I have transformed hell into heaven. I've corrected the first Hokage, Hashirama's mistake. He tried to reform the world but ultimately failed. He and I had the same goals at the beginning and even worked together. We tried to change the shinobi world that sent out their own children into war. We created the shinobi village, however, it did not create true peace. People can't show each other their true feelings. Fear, suspicion, resentment, hate, greed, they never subside. My opinions were pushed aside and the shinobi world moved forward in accordance with Hashirama's vision. And what happened because of it? The fighting between shinobi didn't stop. Instead, establishing ninja villages increased the military power of shinobi and created great world wars leading to countless lives lost. The first Great Ninja War. The second Great Ninja War. The third Great Ninja War. The fighting never ended. That is the legacy Hashirama left behind. Although I admit that I triggered the fourth Great Ninja War, I did attempt to have things end peacefully if you all just handed over the tailed beasts. Right now everyone is inside the divine tree dreaming of their own idyllic world. Is this your version of world peace? You're only deceiving people," Sasuke remarked. Madara simply smiled. "I only wish to be the savior that ends the long history of fighting amongst shinobi. Just know this, the fighting is over." As Madara was speaking about his vision and dreams, I frantically did my best to sense for Black Zetsu's presence but couldn't detect him at all, which made me panic a little inside. Just as I prepared to attack Madara, a shadow appeared behind him and stabbed him through the heart. "No!" I mentally screamed. He was hidden in Madara's shadow this entire time? Everyone was shocked at the scene playing out before us as Black Zetsu said, "You're wrong, Madara. You are not the savior. And this is not the end of things." Naruto exclaimed, "What the heck is going on?" I quickly threw one of my special kunai at Black Zetsu and replied, "Stop them. Quick!" However, before my kunai could make it halfway, Black Zetsu controlled Madara's body to activate the power of his Rinnegan and deflected it with the power of the Deva Path. Zetsu smirked and commented, Now. Don't be in such a rush to end things. After all, this is only the beginning." Madara struggled in place as he couldn't move and said through gritted teeth, "Black Zetsu. What do you think you are doing? You are my will incarnate." Black Zetsu simply chuckled. "Wrong. My dear Madara. Why do you think you are any different than Obito, who you manipulated to this point? You have also been in a phantom dream all this time. One that I concocted. I am not your will incarnate. Rather, I am Kagaya's." Naruto and Sasuke immediately had a bad feeling when they heard Black Zetsu mention Kagaya's name. I ignored Black Zetsu's speech as I quickly activated my Susanoo and slashed out with Masamune. However, it was at that moment that a powerful pulse of energy erupted from all over the world. Naruto widened his eyes in shock and exclaimed, what was that?" Just before my blade could hit Madara and Black Zetsu, a powerful surge of chakra erupted from the ground and intercepted my attack at the same time, displacing my body on the ground. "Fuck!" I cursed as I dashed to the side. All the chakra that erupted from the ground began to gather inside of Madara at this moment. I quickly stabilized my body and shouted, "Don't let him absorb anymore." Sasuke, Naruto, Haku, Kimimaro, and I quickly dashed towards Madara in an attempt to separate Black Zetsu from him. However, before we could even get close, the hair on Madara's back spread out into long, thick, and powerful ropes that ensnared us. Black Zetsu smirked and remarked, "Ha ha. Like moths drawn into the flame. I'll absorb your chakra here and now and be done with it." Naruto struggled and shouted, "Ugh. If we don't stop him here, then everyone will end up dying." Black Zetsu smiled sinisterly and responded, "Don't worry. No one will die. Even when Kagaya was alive, she didn't kill people, she had them wrapped nicely inside the divine tree and transformed them into her soldiers." I gritted my teeth and shouted, "Like we'd let you turn us or anyone else into a bunch of white Zetsus." Black Zetsu widened his eyes in surprise. "Impressive. Izaya. You figured that much out on your own, huh?" "Correct. Those left from the previous casting of the Infinite Tsukuyomi is what white Zetsu are." Madara struggled in his deformed state to lift his head and said in confusion, "Black Zetsu? What are you talking about?" "The Infinite Tsukuyomi is an Uchiha Jutsu. One that brings eternal peace to the world of shinobi." "And what do you base that on?" Black Zetsu responded. "The Sage of Six Paths carved that into the stone tablet." "Ha ha ha. My dear Madara. I have been around eons longer than you have. I have had plenty of time to make revisions on that tablet of his. The Infinite Tsukuyomi is not a jutsu that confers peaceful dreams. Rather, it is a jutsu used to amass large amounts of chakra from those enslaved in it. You acted according to what I know, what Kagaya's will had intended. Just as you used Obito as a pawn, you too were merely a pawn. A pawn for Kagaya's revival." At this moment Madara's body swelled into an enormous size as the five of us were still gripped tightly in Madara's long white hair. I struggled as I shouted, "We need to distance ourselves quickly." Sasuke quickly replaced himself with a rock using the power of his Rinnegan, while I quickly teleported out by Naruto, Haku, and Kimimara's side, effectively teleporting them out to safety one by one. Just as we all escaped, Madara's bloated body shrunk down and all the chakra in the surrounding area calmed down as it was finally completely absorbed. In Madara's place was a woman with two horns and long flowing white hair that reached the ground. She floated in place a few feet above the ground as she stared at us with her Byakugan in indifference. Sasuke furrowed his brow as he said, "That is, Otsutsuki, Kagaya." Naruto widened his eyes in shock. "That is, the one the old Gramps sage talked about. Haku and Kimimaro frowned as they could sense just how otherworldly powerful this woman in front of them was. Kaguya floated closer ever so slowly as she stared at Naruto and Sasuke. These two are Hagoromo and Himura's, no. Rather they are Indra and Azura's. She stared at Naruto's right palm with a tattoo of a sun on it and Sasuke's left hand which had the tattoo of a moon on it. So, it was Hagoromo who gave them the sealing formula. She then took a quick glance at Kimimaro and with a bit of a surprised look she whispered aloud, "Interesting. Himura's bloodline, is it?" Haku gritted his teeth and asked, "What's our next plan of action?" Before anyone could respond, Kaguya chimed in. "You shinobi know nothing of the true meaning of chakra. This place, this land, it is my precious nursery. I won't let it be damaged any further. Let us stop fighting, here that is." In a mere instant the five of us found ourselves in an entirely different dimension inside a large cave filled with deadly lava beneath us. Kaguya watched as all of us began falling to the bottom. She raised her arms and remarked, "I shall erase you all here." I gritted my teeth and quickly threw several kunai at the cavern wall. I then teleported to Haku, Kimimaro, and Sasuke's side as I teleported each of us to one of the kunai stuck on the wall. I then quickly activated my wood style and created footholds along the wall for us to stand on. Naruto had already learned that he could fly during his fight against Madara, so he simply floated in the air and steadied his mind as he took a good look around him. Kaguya widened her eyes in a bit of surprise and remarked, "HMPF, futile." I narrowed my eyes in complete focus as I stared over at Kaguya and said, "Naruto. Sasuke. You both received some sort of power from the six paths, right?" Sasuke nodded. "Yeah. Only Naruto's light style and my shadow style can seal her away." At that moment Kaguya shot forth hundreds and thousands of her white Senbon hair needles our way with incredible speed. Immediately Sasuke and I activated our Susanoo and shielded everyone from the attack. Kaguya quickly rushed forward and struck out with her fist as she shouted, "80 Gods Vacuum Palm." Naruto responded by creating large chakra arms to counter Kaguya's attack. Boom! A blinding light and thundering sound spread out across the cave as both attacks met head-on. With Kaguya's Byakugan she was able to find a gap in Naruto's attack and successfully struck him in the chest, sending him flying uncontrollably through the air. Sasuke utilized that moment to arrive by Kaguya's side clad in his perfect Susanoo and struck down with two giant swords at her body. However, Kaguya simply raised her left arm upwards as she was surrounded in an aura of blue chakra and melted away Sasuke's Susanoo. Sasuke widened his eyes in shock at what he was seeing. Not a moment later Kaguya blasted Sasuke off to the side and sent him falling down towards the lava below. Haku quickly shouted, "Ice Dragon Jutsu!" A large icy dragon swooped down and caught Sasuke in its mouth before bringing him back onto the wooden platform I created earlier. Kimimaro stretched out his arms towards Kaguya and shouted, "Dance of the Honey Locust Spear." Two large bone spears shot out at Kaguya, who scoffed and said, "You can even use a jutsu similar to my own. But it is futile to resist." Just as the bone spears got close she batted them away with her powerful aura. In that instant I arrived above her and activated my own perfect Susanoo. A giant black armored Susanoo with dark black wings with me in the center of its forehead approached closer and closer. Kaguya stared indifferently as she cloaked her hand in blue chakra and prepared to melt my Susanoo away just as she did with Sasuke's. I gritted my teeth and crossed my fingers that my attack would work as my Susanoo unsheathed the cool black and blue blade of Masamune and struck down at her. The next instant Kaguya widened her eyes in complete shock as what happened exceeded her expectations. The moment her hand made contact with my blade it didn't melt away as she had predicted. Instead she was slammed through the air and rolled off into the distance for several miles before crashing into the wall of the cavern. I rejoiced at the fact that my spirit weapon was unaffected by Kaguya's chakra and stood floating in midair as I watched Kaguya crash into the wall in the far distance. Sasuke arrived next to me in his own perfect Susanoo and commented, "It seems like your spirit weapon works against her as well." Haku and Kimimaro rejoiced and shouted, "Nice one, big brother." Naruto finally stabilized himself in the air and floated over next to us. He turned to me and looked down at my waist, pointing to Muramasa, and asked, Izaya, what is that katana? How come I never see you use it? Is it required for you to activate your spirit weapon? I looked down at my waist and shook my head. No. This is a different spirit weapon. I can't use it yet. If I do, it could potentially put us all in danger. Without any more time to explain further, a dark portal appeared behind Naruto and dragged him inside before anyone could react. Naruto! Sasuke shouted as he attempted to follow. However, the portal closed before Sasuke could even get near. Kimimaro frowned and said, What do we do now? I also frowned and said, Give me a moment. I placed my hands together and formed the hand signs of horse, ox, rat, bird, hare, and ram, then said, Flying Thunder God Jutsu, Gate Crossing. Immediately my chakra linked up to the Flying Thunder God seal I placed on Naruto. Heh. I half smiled and half frowned. What is it? Sasuke asked. I developed this jutsu to help me escape Obito's Kamui dimension. It lets me teleport to any of my markers across dimensions. Sasuke widened his eyes in surprise. Then can you teleport us to Naruto? I frowned. I could. But the problem is jumping between dimensions takes up a lot of chakra. To take us all, I'll need the aid of everyone's chakra. Haku quickly chimed in and replied, That's fine, big brother. We'll give you as much as you want. Kimimaro nodded in agreement. Sasuke simply placed his hand on my shoulder and said, Let's hurry. The three of them pulled their chakra and channeled it into me as I focused on Naruto's location. Just as I had amassed enough chakra with everyone's help, I activated my jutsu and teleported everyone by Naruto. Black Zetsu widened his eyes in shock when he saw us appear by Naruto's side. He remained hidden inside Kagaya's sleeve and remarked, Impossible. How did they get to this dimension? Naruto also exclaimed in surprise. How'd you guys get here? Sasuke quickly chimed in, It was Izaya's jutsu. Never mind that though, focus ahead of you. Remember, only you and I together can seal her away. I took a quick sweep around us and noted that this dimension was the one completely covered in ice and snow. Haku smiled as he took in the surroundings and placed his hands together, shouting, Sage Art, Ice-style Swallow Snowstorm Jutsu. The ice all around us condensed into large snowbirds and flew straight at Kagaya in a ferocious storm. Kagaya frowned and controlled the ice world around her to intercept Haku's attack, effectively blocking his jutsu. Haku widened his eyes in surprise. Can she utilize the ice-style Kekkei Genkai as well? Or is this a function of her influence over this world? Naruto furrowed his brow and said, She's merged herself with nature. She can control the environment around her. I frowned and thought to myself, this is just like Kabuto's sage ability to warp his surroundings to aid him in battle. The icy world began moving on its own as the sharp icy rocks and mountains aimed to pierce our bodies, forcing us to keep moving and dodging with every passing second. I quickly dodged a large ice mountain spear and placed my hands together, shouting, Wood style, deep forest emergence. Instantly a huge forest began growing right beneath us and started to obstruct and combat the icy mountains around us. Kimimaro quickly landed on a tree branch and activated the 8th breath of the 9 dragons, breathing, filling him with powerful sage chakra and enhancing all of his taijutsu abilities. He shot forth at an incredible speed and shouted, 8 extreme fists, first fist of destruction. Kagaya responded by shouting, 80 gods vacuum palm. Wham! The impact of the collision generated a powerful force that caused Kimimaro to fly off into the distance for several hundreds of meters, as Kagaya was sent rolling through the air for several tens of meters before she was able to stabilize herself. I used that chance to activate my perfect Susanoo and slashed at her with Masamune. However, before my attack reached her, she disappeared into a black portal. A dark portal appeared behind Sasuke in the next instant, undetected, as she quickly grabbed Sasuke by the collar and dragged him inside. Guh! Sasuke groaned as he was pulled in. Sasuke! I shouted as I turned, only to see a dark portal close shut. Soon after, another portal opened as Kagaya appeared before us. Naruto placed his hands in the clone sign and said, "Shadow Clone Jutsu." Thousands of Narutos appeared as he began attacking her in a flurry of madness. "Where did you bring Sasuke?" he shouted. Kaguya dodged, parried, and defended as she created long ash-colored bones from her hands and began destroying Naruto's clones one by one. The moment I saw Kaguya create those long ash-colored bones, I immediately became alarmed and shouted, "Everyone, be careful of those bones. If you get hit by them, then you're dead." Black Zetsu narrowed his eyes in caution and surprise as he said, "Oh? You know about Mother's all-killing ash bone jutsu? Well, no matter. You're right, if you get hit then it's certain death. So die." Kaguya quickly pointed one of her bones at me and with great speed it shot forth towards my chest. I quickly flew to Haku's location, successfully dodging her attack. In the next moment a large white bone spear flew through the air aiming straight for Kaguya's head. Before it could make contact, her hair flung out and caught the bone spear. She then grabbed it and squeezed, crushing the bone spear into dust as she commented, "This technique is very similar to my all-killing ash bone jutsu. However, it is greatly inferior in its ability to kill." Kimimaro frowned as he watched how easily Kaguya defended against his attack. He took a deep breath and thought, "We have to defeat Kaguya at all costs. She's too dangerous and powerful. If we don't go all out then we'll end up losing. Even though I don't know what the side effects will be yet, I don't have the luxury to think about it. I have to use the complete 9 dragons breathing technique if I want to be useful at all in this fight." Kimimaro closed his eyes and took a deep breath as he felt the surrounding natural energies enter his body. He felt his cells, tissues, muscles, and bones grow stronger and stronger and stronger as they were baptized in natural energy 9 total times by his technique. Sweat dripped down the side of his head and back as he felt some sort of transformation within his body. Kaguya turned her head as she sensed a surge of familiarity coming from Kimimaro. Black Zetsu frowned and commented, "What is he doing?" Kaguya also frowned and activated her Byakugan to take a closer look at the changes happening in Kimimaro's body. She instantly widened her eyes in shock and exclaimed, "How is this possible? His bones are transforming into that of the all-killing ash bones. The natural energy his body absorbed has reinvigorated his diluted Otsutsuki bloodline and made it more pronounced that it has caused a change in his body's physical structure." She quickly stuck her hand out towards Kimimaro and shot several of her all-killing ash bones towards him. But before it could make contact, I arrived by Kimimaro's side and teleported us both safely away into the distance. Maro finally opened his eyes as he completed the activation of the full 9 dragons breathing technique. The purple aura of natural energy surrounding him stopped leaking outside and was fully absorbed and concentrated inside of his body. A tattoo in the shape of a dragon with 9 heads appeared on his face as his eyes turned purple. I stared dumbfoundedly at Kimimaro's transformation and remarked, "Maro, you did it. Not only did you complete the 9 dragons breathing technique, but you became a true sage. The tattoo marks and the coloration changes in your eyes are proof of that. You've become the first taijutsu-oriented sage." Before we could celebrate further, several large ash bones came flying in our direction. Kimimaro narrowed his eyes and quickly responded by placing his hands up and shouted, "All-killing ash bones. Honey locust spears." Several sharp ash bones flew out from Maro's hands and intercepted Kaguya's ash bones, effectively stopping her attack. Kaguya frowned in the distance as she commented, "So he really has awakened the all-killing ash bones." Without giving Kaguya time to think or strategize, Haku shouted, "Sage Art, Ice-Style Crystal Ice Mirrors Jutsu." Hundreds of ice mirrors surrounded Kaguya as they reflected the image of Naruto inside. Naruto quickly activated Kokuo's steam chakra within him and shouted, "Vapor Style, Unrivaled Strength." A huge mass of hot steam rushed out towards Kaguya as she quickly evaded by entering a portal. Before the steam could reach her, she disappeared completely. Naruto shouted in frustration, "Damn it! Where did she go?" In the next instant a hand appeared behind Haku and dragged him inside. Kimimaro, who was closest, shouted, "No." But it was too late as the portal closed completely. Haku glanced around him as he noticed that he was back in that lava-filled cave and quickly activated his ice crystal mirror's jutsu. One mirror appeared beneath him and another mirror appeared by the wood platform that Izaya had created previously. He quickly went through the mirror and popped out of the other safely on the wooden platform. Kaguya stood floating in the distance as she stared at Haku. Haku simply stared back in wariness and said, "So your plan is to separate us and kill us one by one, huh?" Instead of Kaguya responding, it was Black Zetsu who responded. "Exactly. You lot are persistent little roaches. But you all are weak when on your own. Mother, quickly kill him and then we'll go deal with the others." Haku gritted his teeth in preparation for a fierce battle as Kaguya struck out with her palm, creating a massive blast of pure chakra. Haku widened his eyes in alarm as he mentally noted, "I'll die if I take that attack head-on." He quickly jumped in the air and dodged her attack only to find himself facing 100 more palm strikes from Kaguya. Haku gritted his teeth and prepared for the impact as he whispered, "I'm sorry big brother, Maro, everyone. I think this is as far as I go." Haku shut his eyes and crossed his arms while curling his body in a ball, bracing himself. Zing! A flash of azure blue and silver light passed by just before Kaguya's attack made contact. Bam! Then it hit. Kaguya's 100 palm strike blasted Haku off into the distance and smashing into several rock pillars before crashing into the wall of the cavern. Debris and dust kicked up from the force of the impact. Black Zetsu smirked and cackled as he commented, "That's one down. 4 to go. Let's leave and get the others." Kaguya squinted her eyes and commented, "No. It's not over yet." The debris and dust slowly dissipated, revealing Haku, completely disheveled with dirt stains all around, but otherwise unharmed. A fierce blue and silver aura surrounded him, giving off a feeling of immense majesty and danger. The koi fish tattoo on his forehead that marked him as a sage transformed into that of a serpentine dragon. His eyes became a silver color. Kaguya stared warily at Haku and asked, "What did you do just now?" Haku simply stared indifferently at Kaguya as he responded in an echoed voice that sounded like it was a mix of his voice and a wise and ancient creature's voice. "What did I do? I simply lent this child a bit of my power." Kaguya narrowed her eyes in confusion. "Lent him power? Then you are a different entity inhabiting that child's body? Who and what are you?" "Correct. I have simply lent this child a bit of my power as a heavenly sage. I have decided to pass on my teachings onto him. After all, it's rare to find someone who has a good heart and the potential to become a perfect heavenly sage. As for who I am, though we have never personally met before, I'm sure you've heard of my name. I am Tatsumi, the Heavenly Ocean Sage." Kaguya instantly widened her eyes in shock and alarm as her body slightly shuddered. "You are Tatsumi, the Heavenly Ocean Sage? Impossible. I heard that you had died." "Heh. As you can see, I am still very much alive. However, I commend your clan. They managed to injure me greatly and stole many of my treasures. The truth is that I pity you and your circumstance. But I won't allow you to kill this child." Kaguya frowned. "You pity me? How so?" "I pity you because you are ignorant of the truth about yourself and your family. But then again, I suppose not even your own clan knows the truth about you. If you knew the truth, then perhaps you would turn against the Otsutsuki clan. What I find ironic is that you decided to turn on them yourself despite not knowing the truth about yourself. That is why you were amassing an army of white Zetsu, in preparation for the day when they arrive here on this planet. No matter. Your intentions are good, but your methods are questionable. Besides, even if you had succeeded in amassing an army of white Zetsu, they do not possess the strength capable to combat your clan. This you should know well." Kaguya clenched her fist and responded, "Then what should I have done?" "Nothing? They will come. And when they do, they will destroy this planet and steal its chakra fruit, leaving nothing left." Tatsumi stared at Kaguya with his silver bright eyes filled with great wisdom and power and responded, "Yes. They will come. But you alone will not be able to stop them." Why not work together with the shinobi of this world? Kagaya scoffed. Impossible. They are greedy creatures who do nothing but stab each other in the backs at any chance they can get for more power. It is best if I control the flow of all chakra. Only I know how to best use it. Tatsumi shook his head in disapproval. Then there is nothing more to discuss. I shall side with this child and place my faith in that of shinobi. Kagaya frowned and responded, then you will perish along with them. Boom! Kagaya struck out with all her might as she formed a fist and shouted, 80 gods vacuum palm. Tatsumi quickly said, Haku. I am returning control of your body to you. I have lent you my powers as a heavenly sage, but it won't last very long. Min. Haku quickly acknowledged. He pulled back his fist and shouted, Heavenly Sage Art, Ice-style Frozen Fist. A mass of cold icy air condensed around Haku's fist as he punched out with all his being. Wham! A giant snowstorm erupted from Haku's punch, effectively intercepting Kagaya's giant 80 fists. Kagaya widened her eyes in shock. Impossible! He was able to neutralize my attack? What kind of power did Tatsumi lend him? Haku was also shocked and mentally exclaimed, so this is the power that a perfect heavenly sage can grant someone? Swish! Haku quickly turned his head as he felt the presence of someone appear next to him and exclaimed in surprise and emotion, Big brother? I huffed and panted as I slowly steadied my breathing and felt my chakra drastically drain away from me. Haku. Huff. Are you okay? Huff. I felt Haku slowly sit me down against the cavern wall and say, Big brother. You came for me. I thought I would never get to see you or Maru again. I felt my heart clench. Haku. Of course I came. I wouldn't leave you all alone. I promised to protect you and Maru. Haku silently nodded and quickly wiped away a tear from his eye before refocusing and said, Just wait here and recover, big brother. I'm a lot stronger right now because I received some help from the master of Ryuga-jo Palace. Before I could respond, Haku disappeared and dashed off into the distance. I widened my eyes as I finally took notice of the drastic changes surrounding Haku. There was an azure and silver aura flowing off of his body and his eyes were a bright silver color. The tattoo on his forehead bore the mark of a serpentine dragon and he was flying. He was actually flying in midair. I rubbed my eyes just to make sure I was seeing things correctly. Haku can fly? What's with this aura around him? It feels vastly different than anything I ever felt before. Both majestic and incredibly dangerous. Boom! Bang! Boom! Bang! Flashes of silver and blue light flooded the entire area as Haku engaged Kagaya in a battle unlike any ever seen before. I gripped tightly onto the wall so as not to fly off into the distance from the force of the residual impact of their battle. I stared in awe at their fight and wonderment. It was at that moment that I heard Senko's voice inside my head. Incredible. He must be using the power of a heavenly sage. The aura feels very familiar. If I'm not mistaken, then this power must be from the heavenly ocean sage Tatsumi. I never imagined that he too would be alive and survive the heavenly purge. I furrowed my brow in confusion and asked, What? Heavenly ocean sage? Tatsumi? Heavenly purge? What's going on, Senko? Izaya, I should ask you what's going on. After I helped you evolve your Mangekyo into that of the Eternal, I went straight to sleep. Now all of a sudden a member of the Otsutsuki clan has appeared. And it just so happened to be Kagaya at that. I only became more confused with every word Senko said. Senko, you know about the Otsutsuki clan and about Kagaya? You still haven't answered my previous questions. Senko let out a breath of seriousness before responding. Listen carefully, Izaya. I still haven't fully recovered. It's because I keep waking up to lend you some aid. I estimate that it'll take about a year for me to truly recover enough strength where I don't need to sap any of your power to survive. I don't have much time before I need to go back to rest, so an in-depth explanation on your previous questions will have to wait once I've recovered. But to start, First, your brother Haku is using a powerful technique known as Heavenly Sage Mode. It's an ability that only a few rare beings in the heavenly plane knew how to use. From what it looks like, your brother Haku is borrowing some power from Aotatsumi. His Heavenly Sage Mode will only last for another minute, maybe two. He isn't accustomed to its power yet, and so he can only fight Kaguya to a draw. He can't kill her. Once his power runs out, you'll need to teleport both him and yourself out of here to safety. I frowned as I listened to Senko's explanation. I'd like to do that, but I only got to this dimension thanks to Naruto lending me some of his chakra. I only have enough chakra to send one of us out of here. I have been amassing chakra from you over the past few months. I haven't had the chance to use it all yet, so I'll lend what's left back to you. That should be enough to send you both out of here. But once again, it'll take longer before I recover. But it can't be helped with your current situation. I'll do you one more favor. I know you have the skill to sense and absorb natural energy, but you lack a proper transformation system to become an actual sage. I'll teach you the pathway system to circulate natural energy so you can become a 4 divine symbols sage. That should help you a little in your fight against Kaguya. Now get ready. I simply nodded my head and stood back up as I felt Senko pass on some information to me. I also felt a burst of chakra as Senko returned all the chakra he hadn't used up back to me at that moment. I clenched my fist and returned my attention back at Haku, who was still engaged in a fierce battle against Kaguya. Haku quickly backflipped midair, avoiding a deadly attack from Kaguya, and placed his hands together shouting, "Heavenly Sage Art, Ice-Style Multi-Ice Dragon Jutsu." In mere seconds, 10 gigantic frosty ice dragons condensed in the area and shot out towards Kaguya. She narrowed her eyes and clapped her hands together, creating 100 giant ash bone spears that intercepted the ice dragons. Haku frowned as he noted that he was running out of heavenly energy. Kaguya appeared next to Haku and thrust out a powerful palm strike, to which he expertly raised his left arm to deflect her attack. Haku quickly ducked down, successfully avoiding Kaguya's long hair attack, and dashed backwards, creating some distance between them. Before Kaguya could press on her attack, Haku placed his hands together and shouted, "Heavenly Sage Art, Ice-Style Freezing Mist Jutsu." He expelled from his mouth a mist of freezing ice so large and dense that even the lava below froze over. Kaguya furrowed her brow and successfully escaped as she disappeared inside one of her portals. As the freezing mist came to a stop, Haku huffed and panted heavily as the aura surrounding him disappeared. His Heavenly Sage Mode finally wore off as the serpentine dragon tattoo on his forehead regressed into that of the double koi fish. Haku began falling from the air as he could no longer fly in his current form. I quickly teleported to his side and propped him over my shoulder as I sensed my marker on Naruto and teleported us back into the icy world dimension Naruto and Kimimaro were in. The instant we returned to Naruto's side, Kimimaro frantically ran over to us. "Izaya! Haku! Are you both alright?" I set Haku down to rest against an icy boulder before responding. "Yeah. We're both fine. Did you see Kaguya? She disappeared from the dimension we were in." Kimimaro let out a sigh of relief and shook his head. "No. Kaguya hasn't appeared here." I frowned. "Then she must have entered the dimension where I stumbled backwards a bit as my vision suddenly became obscured. Hints of cloudiness and extreme clarity tunneled back and forth before my vision stabilized. Naruto, Haku, and Kimimaro were immediately alarmed as they quickly came to my aid and supported me so I wouldn't fall. "Izaya, what's wrong?" Naruto asked concernedly. I clutched my eyes as I felt a strange pulsing sensation in my eyes. It lasted for a few seconds before subsiding. "Izaya?" Kimimaro questioned in confusion and concern. I recomposed myself and examined my body only to find nothing out of the ordinary. I'm fine. Sorry if I worried you guys." Haku frowned at my answer. "Big brother. You don't just stumble and clutch your eyes if everything is fine. Are you sure?" I nodded. "Don't worry. I'm fine." Naruto nodded. "What were you saying earlier about where Kaguya disappeared?" "Right. If Kagaya isn't here, then she probably left to the dimension where she sent Sasuke. We need to hurry. We can't let Sasuke face her alone. If we all pull our chakra together, I can take us to where Sasuke is. Min. Everyone nodded as Naruto, Haku, and Kimimaro placed their hands on my back and fueled me with as much chakra as they could. Just as I gathered enough chakra to send all four of us, I quickly made the jump. Black Zetsu frowned as Kagaya just dodged an attack from Sasuke and noticed that Naruto and the others had appeared as well. He gritted his teeth and shouted, "You pesky cockroaches. Just die!" Sasuke quickly acknowledged our presence but kept his focus on Kagaya. Kagaya, however, frowned at our appearance. I took note of our surroundings, which happened to be her desert dimension. Black Zetsu chimed in at this moment. Mother. Since Sasuke and Naruto are reunited, we can't afford to be stingy with our chakra anymore. Kagaya stared at us indifferently and responded, I know. She spread out her arms and, utilizing the power of her Rinne Sharingan, transported everyone into another one of her space-time dimensions. Ugh! Guh! We all felt a heavy gravitational weight pull down on our bodies and kept us all grounded and nearly immobile. Kimimaro had the easiest time moving around in his enhanced taijutsu state, but his movements were much slower than normal. Kagaya stretched out her palms and aimed right at Sasuke and Naruto as she shot forth two spears of her all-killing ash bones at them. Kimimaro quickly reacted as he shot out his own ash bones, intercepting hers. Black Zetsu cursed aloud. Damn you! Mother, with his enhanced taijutsu state, the gravity isn't affecting him as much. You should get rid of him first and then kill Sasuke and Naruto. I frowned as I heard what Black Zetsu said and retorted, You think I'll let you hurt Kimimaro? Think again. I placed my hands together and quickly absorbed the natural energy around me according to the way Senko had instructed me earlier. In mere moments, 4 circular symbols appeared on my forehead, with the bottom circle containing the mark of a phoenix inside. For divine symbols, Sage Mode. Sage Art, Wood Style with Dragon Jutsu. A wooden dragon quickly erupted beneath Kagaya, but before it could ensnare her, the world around us transformed once again as she transported us to a different spacetime. This removed the heavy gravity from all of us, allowing Kagaya to quickly fly upwards to avoid being caught in my jutsu. She floated there in the sky, staring down at all of us with a hint of frustration in her eyes, while the rest of us rejoiced from having the heavy gravity off of our backs. Haku stared at me for a moment before commenting, Big brother, I didn't know you could use Sage Mode. I couldn't. But let's just say a friend helped me out. I took note of our new surroundings, which was a land filled with giant pink striped mountains and hills, and thought, this is the center of all of Kagaya's space-time dimensions. A palpable tension passed between us and Kagaya as we all stood in silence thinking about our next plan of action. In the next instant, Sasuke immediately activated his perfect Susanoo and shot into the air as Naruto created a giant Kurama and also flew into the sky. Haku gritted his teeth and placed his hands together, shouting, Sage Art, Ice Style Grand Ice Dragon Jutsu. A giant ice dragon with large wings condensed around Haku and lifted him into the sky as I quickly arrived by Kimimaro's side and shouted, Perfect Susanoo. The giant form of a black armored Susanoo flew into the air as I took Maro with me. As both sides stood on opposite ends, we all knew that this confrontation was going to be the one to truly decide the fate of the world. Chapter 60, The Sixth Hokage. Crash! Boom! The entire dimension shook and trembled. The sky became filled with dark storm clouds. The wind roared and howled as if it were a raging dragon. Craters formed so deep the bottom couldn't be seen. The battle currently in place within this dimension was so fierce that mountains split and rivers formed. The very terrain shifted and changed with every fist thrown and every jutsu casted. Haku rode atop his frozen ice dragon jutsu, evading and countering. He did all he could in order to weaken Kagaya. He quickly formed the ram hand sign and shouted, Sage Art, Ice Style Freezing Liquid Jutsu. A mass of dense freezing liquid condensed in the air and began to move towards Kagaya. I quickly weaved the horse hand sign and shouted, Sage Art, Fire Style Majestic Destroyer Flame Jutsu. From my breath I exhaled a flame that spread across for several tens of meters tall and wide. Naruto quickly placed his hands together and tapped into the power of the five tails, Kokuo, and shouted, "Sage art, vapor-style unrivaled strength." A large gaseous cloud of extreme boiling heat rushed towards Kaguya as she was surrounded in three corners by the three massive attacks aimed at her. As she was about to fly down towards the ground to avoid the attack, Kimimaro quickly shouted, "All-killing ash bones, 1,000 spears of death." Immediately multiple sharp ash bones shot out from the ground and upwards towards Kaguya. Without any choice she quickly looked up to the sky, and just as she was about to fly upwards to escape, Sasuke shouted, "Kirin!" Boom! The sound of thunder echoed across the entire dimension as a great dragon made of pure lightning dropped down from the sky and flew straight at Kaguya with blinding fast speed. Kaguya gritted her teeth and narrowed her eyes in frustration as she quickly gathered her powerful chakra all around her body and chose to dive straight through Haku's attack instead of taking on the brunt of all five attacks aimed at her together. Bam! Not a moment later all of our attacks met in the middle and created a devastating storm of powerful chaotic energy. Kaguya, however, managed to escape, albeit her right arm was covered in frost and began to become discolored. She frowned as she took note that her right arm was no longer usable, so she quickly chopped it off. In but merely a few seconds she regrew another arm good as new. Before we could attempt another attack she quickly arrived before Haku and struck out with her fist. Haku barely had time to respond as he raised up his arms to shield himself. Wham! Guh! Haku groaned as he was knocked flying through the air and crashing through the ground. Kimimaro quickly dashed over and aimed a powerful kick straight at Kaguya's head. However, Kaguya quickly threw a punch into a portal as another portal carrying Kaguya's fist opened up next to Kimimaro's side. Being caught off guard by Kaguya's unconventional attack, he too was knocked flying off into the distance. Naruto frowned and quickly flew down from the sky in his giant Kurama cloaked form and slammed one of his giant chakra tails at her. Kaguya quickly responded by creating hundreds of her own giant chakra arms and parried his attack before successfully gripping one of his tails and swung him around, flinging him off into the distance. Just as Sasuke arrived before her, a dark portal appeared in front of him, forcing him to halt in his tracks before he could fall inside. The portal managed to obscure his vision as Kaguya whipped her long white hair around and slammed Sasuke off into one of the giant mountainous hills in the distance. I furrowed my brow as I quickly approached where she was. Black Zetsu cackled as he quickly chimed in, "Mother. Now is your chance. If you can kill this brat Izaya, then the others won't be able to jump dimensions. Once they are separated you can kill them one at a time." Kaguya narrowed her eyes as she dashed at me with incredible speed. In less than a second she arrived before me and struck out with a palm strike. I quickly shifted my head to the left, avoiding her attack, and struck with my own palm strike, aiming at her neck. In but a mere minute we had exchanged over more than 100 strikes of hand-to-hand combat as we both kicked, punched, grappled, swept, dodged, countered, parried, and struck. As our fists came crashing down against one another, we were both instantly blown back by the recoil of our strike. Kaguya stumbled a few dozens of meters away. However, I came out much worse in that exchange as I stumbled a few hundreds of meters away. I gritted my teeth as I took note that even in my sage-enhanced state I still wasn't physically her match in taijutsu. I widened my eyes in surprise as I saw several ash bones quickly making their way towards me. Before I could get hit, I quickly threw out several kunai in the vicinity and flew to one of the locations, avoiding Kaguya's deadly attack. Just as I disappeared and reappeared, my heart skipped a beat as I quickly crossed my arms in front of me and guarded against one of Kaguya's giant chakra fists. Guh! I groaned as her attack connected and flung me crashing into a giant mountain. I struggled to not lose consciousness as blood flowed out of my mouth. Kaguya quickly floated down from the sky and in front of me as I racked my brain for my next plan of action. Kaguya quickly stuck out her hand and created a large ash bone, shooting it straight at me. I tried to focus but was still a bit disoriented from her earlier attack. Only a single thought passed through my mind at that moment. "I'm sorry, Hanabi." I stared as the ash bone came closer and closer. My vision started focusing in and out between obscurity and clarity. It felt as if time began to slow down. Is this what it feels like when you stare death in the face? I smiled mockingly to myself and thought. However, I quickly snapped out of my thoughts and widened my eyes in surprise when I took note that the ash bone spear remained stuck midair and didn't approach. I blinked once to ensure that I was seeing things correctly, but the strange thing was that my vision had never been more clear than in that moment. Without wasting any time at all, I quickly flew off into the distance to one of my kunai from earlier, escaping from that perilous situation as I furrowed my brow in a bit of confusion at what just happened. It wasn't only me who was confused. Kagaya and Black Zetsu, who watched the entire ordeal before their eyes, were shocked to the extreme. Black Zetsu stammered, "I am possible. How? Why does Izaya possess the Rinnegan as well?" Kagaya frowned as she watched in that moment as her ash bone spear finally moved and shot out at the now empty spot where I was previously. She activated her Byakugan before turning to look at me in the distance with great wariness and spoke to no one in particular. "He has awakened the Rinnegan in both of his eyes. It seems his body is a bit unique. In order to teleport into my different dimensions, he needs a great amount of chakra. The chakra he uses to teleport into my many different dimensions is fueled by the other 4 shinobi. That is how he received the chakra from both Azura and Indra's reincarnations, Naruto and Sasuke. Furthermore, Naruto and Sasuke have received a portion of Hagoromo's chakra. Small portions of that chakra entered his body when those two shared it with him to teleport around. Just now his body successfully harmonized those two halves of Hagoromo's chakra into one, which allowed his Sharingan to evolve into that of the Rinnegan." Black Zetsu gritted his teeth in frustration and anxiousness. "Mother. We must do everything we can to kill him. 2 Rinnegan users will be too dangerous to deal with at the same time." Kagaya nodded as she prepared to re-engage in battle. Meanwhile, as Kagaya and Black Zetsu were discussing my Rinnegan, I was also observing the changes that happened to me. Both of my Eternal Mangekyo Sharingans had transformed into a completely black-colored red-ringed circular patterned Rinnegan with 6 red-colored tomo in them. I placed my palm over my eye in disbelief and thought, was it because I received a portion of Naruto and Sasuke's chakra that contained some of Hagoromo's chakra? I quickly did my best to discern exactly what abilities my Rinnegan granted me, but didn't have too much time as Kagaya quickly arrived before me and struck out with several large ash bones. Before those ash bones could reach me, I stuck out my palm and shouted, "Almighty push!" Boom! Instantly the ash bones were blown off into the distance as I quickly dashed straight towards Kagaya and shouted, "Amaterasu!" Kagaya quickly created a portal in front of her, causing the inextinguishable black flames to enter her portal instead of hitting her. She quickly infused chakra into her hair and shot it straight at me. However, I quickly activated the power of my right Rinnegan and shouted, "Kanagara no Michi." Instantly everything within a 5-meter radius of me froze completely. I quickly dashed right before Kagaya and thrust out as powerful of a palm strike as I could, blasting her off into the distance, at the same time marking her with my Flying Thunder God Seal. I smirked at my success and instantly teleported to Sasuke and Naruto, gathering them both to my side. I could tell they both had wanted to ask about my Rinnegan, but without letting them interject, I simply said, "I've marked her. Now's our chance. I'll teleport you both to her side." Without any more words of discussion, I instantly teleported them both next to Kagaya. Naruto and Sasuke didn't waste any time as they immediately placed their palm over her. The sun and moon seal on their hands resonated together and slowly began to cover Kagaya's Rinne Sharingan. It all happened so fast that Kagaya and Black Zetsu couldn't even react. Black Zetsu could only voice in disbelief. "I am possible. How did this happen?" "No!" Kagaya frowned in disbelief as well. "How can this be? I have been defeated by my own children once again? I am the progenitor of chakra. What happened? How did that child stop my attack? How did he strike me without my knowledge? And how did Sasuke and Naruto arrive before me in an instant?" The dimension shook and trembled as rock and debris floated into the air, coalescing into one giant moon. Kagaya screamed in anguish as her body expanded in size. All the chakra she had absorbed within her was being released back into the world. The tailed beasts stretched out from her body and ripped themselves free of her control as the 9 of them fell from the sky and landed on the ground with a loud thud. Black Zetsu struggled to free himself from the seal, but no matter how he fought he couldn't break free. Sasuke stared at the giant mass in the air as it still continued to grow and shouted, "Run! Or else we'll all be pulled up there as well." Whoosh! Immediately after Sasuke finished his sentence he, Naruto, and all the tailed beasts ran as fast as they could off into the distance. Boom! 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 The loud sound of the ground shaking from the heavy footsteps of all 9 tailed beasts running could be heard. It wasn't long before they made it to a safe distance. Swish! 3 people instantly appeared next to Sasuke and Naruto at that moment. Izaya! Haku! Kimimaro! Naruto exclaimed as he turned towards us. Haku simply stared in awe at the giant mass in the sky that was still growing and said, "Did we win?" Naruto threw a thumbs up and replied, "Amen." Kimimaro sat on the ground and let out a sigh of relief and fatigue. Finally. It's over. I smiled as I watched everyone's relieved expressions show on their faces and praised, "We made it through this together." Everyone. Sasuke turned to me and stared at my eyes for a moment in silence before he couldn't hold back his curiosity anymore and asked, "Izaya, your eyes, how?" It was at this moment that Haku and Kimimaro took notice of the change in my eyes as well. "Yeah? Big brother, you also possess the Rinnegan? Since when?" Haku asked bewilderedly. I thought about how to answer for a moment before saying, "To be honest, I don't really know. I can only guess. My body is very good at assimilating bloodlines." Naruto, you received the light portion of the Sage of Six Paths chakra. Sasuke, you received the shadow portion of the Sage of Six Paths chakra. Sasuke, you shared some of your chakra with me so that I could teleport us to Naruto's location when we were first separated. Naruto, you shared some of your chakra with me when Haku was separated from us. Then you shared some with me again so we could teleport to Sasuke later. My guess is that when you both shared some of your chakra with me it contained a portion of the Six Paths Sage chakra. Sasuke, I assume this is how you obtained your Rinnegan, as you received half of the Six Paths chakra. Naruto, that is how you can fly. You received the other half of the Six Paths chakra. Receiving the Six Paths chakra evolved your powers fundamentally. When I received a portion of both halves of the Six Paths chakra my body must have assimilated the 2 powers together and in turn it caused my eyes to fundamentally change and evolve into the Rinnegan. While I'm not sure if this is correct, that's my theory. I was just as surprised if not more surprised than all of you when it happened. But ultimately that transformation saved my life. I may have fallen to Kagaya's attack otherwise. Everyone took a moment to take in what I said before Naruto broke the silence. Wait. Instead of wondering how Izaya awakened the Rinnegan, shouldn't we worry about how we're going to get back? Sasuke stared at Naruto dumbfoundedly. Couldn't Izaya just teleport us back to our dimension? The tailed beasts laughed as Son Goku chimed in, "Oi, Kurama. Your Jinchuriki isn't half bad, but he's still a bit dense, huh?" Kurama simply looked on dumbfoundedly in silence. I rubbed the back of my head sheepishly and said, "Well, I believe I can teleport all of us back, but it will require enormous amounts of chakra. I'd need the aid of all the tailed beasts here to pool together your chakra for the jump to be successful." Naruto scratched the side of his cheeks as he grinned towards all the tailed beasts. "Well, what about it you guys?" Kurama simply fake scoffed. "HMPF. I suppose you did play a pivotal role in freeing us." Kyuki laughed and chimed in, "Oi Kurama. You can be more honest with your feelings, you know. No need to act so high and mighty now." Keek. That guy never knows how to lighten up," Shikaku retorted in his high-pitched voice. I simply smiled awkwardly as Haku, Kimimaro, Naruto, Sasuke, and I listened to all the tailed beasts banter with each other. I took a sweep around us and noted that the giant moon was finally stabilizing in the sky, completing the seal of Kagaya and Black Zetsu. Letting out a sigh of relief, I pulled out a black silk blindfold and started tying it around my eyes. Naruto noticed my actions and tilted his head to the side in confusion before asking, Izaya, why are you putting a blindfold on? After I finished tying my blindfold in place, I simply shrugged my shoulders. It just feels natural to have it on. I've been wearing one my entire life. I feel a bit naked without it now. Besides, there are only two main abilities that I can't use when I wear my blindfold: Ocular Genjutsu and Amaterasu. All my other ocular abilities don't actually require eye contact. Plus, a lot of people know me by my blindfold. It's a memorable feature of mine, I suppose. Naruto scratched his head and nodded. Yeah, I guess what you say does make sense. Plus the whole blindfold thing makes you seem more mysterious. By the way, shouldn't we head back now? Before anyone could respond, we all felt ourselves being warped. In the next instant, we disappeared from Kagaya's dimension and reappeared in the battlefield of our world. Kimimaro widened his eyes in shock. How? He then turned to look at me, but I shook my head. It wasn't me. I then nodded in front of us where an old man sitting cross-legged floating in the air was. Naruto quickly chimed in, Old Man Six Paths? Hagoromo laughed and smiled. Ha ha ha. Excellent work, the five of you. You all have defeated my mother and saved the world. Sasuke took a quick glance around and noticed that they were standing inside a giant summoning circle with a bunch of people standing on the outside. The previous Hokages included. Hagoromo gave us all a moment to take in our surroundings before continuing, You all have been summoned back to your world. I enlisted the help of all the previous 5 Kage. I tilted my head to the side as I stared at the Sage of Six Paths and thought, so this is the Sage Otsutsuki Hagoromo? Looks just as I remembered him. His presence is incredible. The amount of power he wields must be amazing. Hagoromo took note of my inspection of him and chuckled. You must be Karasuma Izaya. I slightly flinched at his comment, knowing that he probably caught me inspecting him, and quickly replied, Yes, I am Izaya. It's a pleasure and an honor to meet you, Lord Sage. He nodded his head in approval. I am Otsutsuki Hagoromo, also known as the Sage of Six Paths. And the pleasure and honor is mine, Izaya-kun. I have been watching the passing of time in this world for a long while. I am most impressed by you. You have a strong will, a compassionate heart, an intelligent mind, an assertive voice, a talent with words, contain great wisdom, a powerful leader, and have managed to successfully guide everyone to defeat my mother Kagaya. You were also able to save Indra's reincarnation from a path of darkness and Azura's reincarnation from a road of hatred. I simply shook my head. You overpraise me, Lord Sage. Hagoromo simply chuckled. Ha ha ha. And it appears you are quite humble as well. Anyways, once again congratulations to you all. At this moment Naruto left to go excitedly speak to Kurama, causing Kurama to flush embarrassedly. Hagoromo continued to simply chuckle at the sight. At that moment Sasuke and I saw the first Hokage Hashirama walk towards a body on the ground. I raised my eyebrow in surprise as I took note of who it was. Madara? I nearly forgot about him. Just as Sasuke was about to move towards Madara, Hagoromo spread out his arms to stop him and said, Madara had all the tailed beasts extracted from him. He won't last much longer. Take a good look at the end of your predecessors. You should watch closely. As Madara laid on the ground completely drained of strength, he heard footsteps slowly approach him. Hashirama? Is that you? Hashirama knelt down by Madara's dying body and responded, Amen. It's me. Madara curled his lips in a bit of self-mockery as he said, I guess neither you nor I could achieve what we wanted. Hashirama shook his head. It's never that easy. We can only do all we can while we are still alive. And everything and anything that we couldn't accomplish in our lifetime we pass on to the future generations. Madara smirked. Heh. So naive. As always. But you were always like that. An optimist. But perhaps, that is the correct path. My dream was crushed. But your dream lives on. Hashirama stared down at Madara sadly as he listened and replied, you and I were too hasty. We didn't need to fulfill our dreams ourselves. Instead, it was more important to guide and teach those who came after us so that we could entrust them with our dreams. Then I would have failed anyways. Since I always hated having someone stand behind my back. Hashirama smiled a bit. When we were kids. You once said to me that because we are shinobi we don't know when we'll die. And for neither side to die we both have to reveal what's inside of us and pour each other drinks to toast like brothers. But we're both about to die. We can drink together as old war buddies. Madara smirked as he slowly closed his eyes. War buddies, huh? Well, I suppose that's not so bad. Hashirama let out a sad sigh as he watched Madara breathe his last breath and enter the afterlife. Hagoromo nodded in approval and said, this is the perfect moment. I shall release the jutsu and free the previous 5 Kages as well as those still under the reanimation. It was at that moment that Naruto stared fondly and sadly at Minato. Kurama put on a soft expression as he said, go. Naruto nodded and dashed over to Minato. I watched everything play out from the side as Hagoromo began to undo his jutsu and release those who still remained under the reanimation such as Lord First, Second, and Lord Fourth. As Minato ascended to the heavens the last words he said were, everyone. We leave the rest to you. Tobirama was the next to disappear as he chimed in, big brother, as the fourth said. Let's leave the rest to the new generation. Hashirama nodded as he looked over to where we were. Naruto, Sasuke, Haku, Kimimaro, and blindfolded shinobi. I nearly fell over myself at Hashirama's last interjection in the end. Right. Lord First and Lord Second never officially met me. I scratched the side of my cheek awkwardly and said, my name is Izaya. Karasuma Izaya. It's an honor to make your acquaintance, Lord First. Hashirama simply laughed embarrassedly. Ha ha ha. Right. We haven't formally met, so excuse my rudeness. Naruto, Sasuke, Haku, Kimimaro, and Izaya. We entrust the world to you all. I'm sure you all will find a different conclusion to the one that Madara and I had. No. In fact, you probably already have. I can go easily knowing the world is in good hands. Hashirama smiled goofily and happily as he finally disappeared in a flutter of bright lights. All the tailed beasts rejoiced as Son Goku chimed in, finally we're free. I'm going back to Suirendo. Kokuo quickly commented, I'm going to go seclude myself in a forest. Kurama turned to Gyuki and said, Eight Tails, what are you going to do? Gyuki remained silent for a moment before responding, I think, I'm going to return to B. I left a piece of my tail with him before we were separated. He should be around somewhere. His annoying rapping has ended up growing on me. Plus, he's not such a bad guy. So, what about you? Kurama remained silent for a moment and quickly side-glanced at Naruto, not knowing how he should respond. Hagoromo chimed in at that moment. Naruto contains a piece of each of your chakras. If you all need to discuss something you can meet inside the psyche plane within Naruto. Kurama, I'd like you to remain inside Naruto as the overseer of this gathering place. It's no longer a hardship for you anymore, right? Kurama sheepishly looked away and replied, well, if you say so, old man. Then I guess I have no choice. The other tailed beasts laughed as they began their banter once again. In the end, Hagoromo interrupted, now there is only one thing left to do. To undo the infinite Tsukuyomi. In order to accomplish this, Sasuke, with your Rinnegan, and Naruto, with the bits and pieces of all the tailed beast chakra gathered inside of you, if you and Sasuke join together to form the rat hand sign, the infinite Tsukuyomi shall be released. Kurama commented in surprise, That's it? That's pretty simple then, old man. Naruto smiled and walked over to Sasuke as he held out his hand. Sasuke stared at Naruto for a moment in silence before he closed his eyes and formed the rat hand seal with Naruto. At the same time they both said, "Infinite Tsukuyomi, release." The instant Sasuke and Naruto completed the seal, the world shook and the large trees of the divine, deep forest emergence began to crumble away. All those trapped within the infinite Tsukuyomi were slowly released back into the world of reality. I rejoiced as I felt my heart pound uncontrollably in my chest as the image of a single person clouded my mind. Hanabi! Instantly I activated the Flying Thunder God Jutsu and arrived by her side, catching her small sleeping frame in my arms as she was falling down to the ground. Just as I landed, I softly brushed the strands of hair that were covering her face to the side and gritted my teeth in anxiousness as I sensed that she still had some broken ribs. I watched the semi-irregular movement of her chest from her breathing due to her broken ribs causing her pain. A single tear fell from my eyes and dripped down on her cheeks. Hanabi felt a warm sensation fall on her cheeks, prompting her to struggle to open her eyes. However, immediately she was glad that she put in the effort to take a peek, because the first thing she was met with was Izaya's handsome face. I watched Hanabi smirk and struggle to lift her hand as she softly caressed the side of my cheek, wiping away the tear on my face. "Izaya," she softly whispered. I frowned as feelings of frustration and anger directed at myself for not protecting Hanabi better welled up inside of me. I simply pulled her to my chest and held her as close to me as possible, being extremely careful not to agitate her wounds any further. "I'm sorry. I should have come sooner." Hanabi smiled as she relished the warmth of our embrace and softly stroked the back of my head. "It's okay. I'm fine." "Did we win?" I simply nodded my head. "Min." 1 week later. 1 week has passed since the end of the Fourth Great Ninja War. I contemplated as I sat atop the roof of my apartment building. Even though a week has passed, everything was left in disarray and chaos. The entire world's infrastructure was damaged due to all of the large tree branches from the divine, deep forest emergence erupting from the ground and tearing apart buildings and land structures. On top of that, countless shinobi had died in the war. Many of those shinobi were mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, sons, daughters, and more. Many had families that weren't shinobi, and many had families that were shinobi. Some lived, some didn't. The process to recollect the dead was hectic and unorganized. Even now, not all of the bodies have been recovered. Kumogakure was without a leader for 5 days. The fourth Raikage couldn't name a successor before his death. The Kumogakure Council had finally decided on Darui as the fifth Raikage. And although the third Tsuchikage named Kuratsuchi as his successor before his death, there was still the whole process of trying to publicly officiate her position. Add to the fact that she was still incredibly young. In fact, she was only a year older than myself. Kirigakure wasn't incredibly stable even before the war, and now it's in even more chaos. It's practically mayhem over there. Konoha isn't doing much better. Tsunade hasn't been able to properly fulfill her role as the Hokage, and I don't blame her. She nearly died during the war and has suffered a lot already. I wouldn't be surprised if she's been traumatized by her near-death experience. The stress of trying to deal with all the problems in the village and the outside world definitely doesn't help her situation. The truth is, Sunagakure is doing the best of all the villages. Mostly thanks to Gaara's ability to manage it, but even then they're just barely getting by. The world is in an absolute state of chaos. Each village's economy and resources has plummeted. The cost to fund the Fourth Great Ninja War wasn't cheap. Add the fact that trade routes are slow or have stopped completely. Travel roads need to be repaired, etc. I let out a deep sigh in frustration as I thought about all of the chaos going on. I took a quick peek at the sky and noted that it was about time for the next Jonin Council meeting to start. I took one last gaze at the village below, which was still in shambles, and let out another sigh before dashing off to the Hokage's building where the Jonin Council was being held. Creak! As I opened the door, I was met with many familiar faces. Kakashi, Guy, Choji, Shikamaru, Niji, Sakura, Sasuke, Hanabi, Naruto, Kiba, Haku, Kimimaro, Lee, and many more. Essentially everyone who had graduated in our class had been promoted to Jonin nearly immediately after the war ended. The only ones who haven't officially been promoted to Jonin were Kimimaro, Naruto, and Hanabi. First, Hanabi was approximately 2 years younger than us, and when the war began she never had the chance to take the Chunin exams, therefore, she was essentially still a Genin. Naruto and Kimimaro also never had the chance to take the Chunin exams, and therefore they were also technically still Genin. Only those who had been officially Chunin before the war were promoted to Jonin after the war, which was practically everyone else, but Hanabi, Naruto, and Kimimaro were obviously allowed to join the Jonin Council as they played pivotal roles during the war. As I made my way inside the room, I was warmly greeted by everyone. I stopped right before Hanabi and grabbed her hand in mine as I gave a light squeeze to reassure her that everything would be fine, even though this was the 5th meeting we were having. All this time nothing had been improving since no plan of action was being implemented. Partly because Tsunade rarely made it to these meetings. Hanabi simply smiled warmly at me, but I could see the worry in her eyes. We all waited for another 10 minutes, but Tsunade still hadn't shown up. By now we all had expected this. The two elders Koharu and Hamura coughed as they said, "Ahem. Well, it appears that the 5th Hokage is occupied. Hence, we shall begin this Jonin Council meeting to discuss the problems and issues we currently face. Does anyone have any brilliant ideas?" Silence. Complete silence filled the room as everyone struggled to think of something. This may be our 5th time meeting, but no real solutions have actually ever been presented. And I don't blame anyone. Everyone in this room was still dealing with the trauma they experienced from the war. They all still needed time to grieve the friends, comrades, family, and loved ones they lost in the war. All this time I had been contemplating about the state of things as well. I took one glance over at Hanabi and noticed the anxiety in her eyes. The fear that things were only going to get worse from here on out. My heart ached seeing her like this. She hadn't got a moment of proper rest ever since we returned from the war. Having to deal with her clan. Then helping out the village. Dealing with the trauma she experienced during the war. I gritted my teeth and slowly brought her hand to my lips and kissed the back of her hand softly. My action startled her, and immediately the fear and anxiety in her eyes washed away, replaced with an emotion of love and care and embarrassment. I smiled. Yes. These are the expressions I'd rather see on her face. I then turned my attention back to the silent room of Jonin and said, "I have an idea." Immediately everyone turned their attention towards me. Hamura raised his eyebrows and responded, "Oh? Do share, Izaya. Anything is better than nothing." I simply nodded my head before continuing. After these past 7 days, I've had some time to think clearly about everything. First, we need to lay out what kind of problems the village is facing. Then we also need to define what kinds of issues the world is facing that might affect us immediately and slow our progress of rebuilding. Once we clearly understand the major issues plaguing the village and the rest of the world, we can move forward with clear solutions. Hamura nodded and replied, "Yes. That seems reasonable. From what it sounds like, you already have an idea of what these major issues are, correct?" I nodded once more. "Yes. Let me start with the village. The major issues we face include having a reliable and effective way to retrieve the still unrecovered bodies of our fallen comrades on the battlefield. Our military strength has dropped significantly and there is no order to it currently. Our police force also has no current structure and is not in place. The villagers have lost many of their loved ones in the war and wish to hold a memorial, but there has been no answer from the village authorities. This is because the village is swamped with a host of other problems. They include trying to rebuild the foundations of our buildings, re-establishing trade routes, tending to the injured post-war, trying to stabilize and redistribute economic resources to the right places that need them, and calming public unrest and crime. These are the major issues the village faces. As for worldly problems, there's a tension between all the 5 great nations due to a lack of communication post-war, since every nation is occupied with trying to solve their own problems. This could lead to an outbreak of war. One nation might see the need to raid another village in desperation for acquiring more resources to help rebuild their own village. Also, international trade routes need to be re-established. Not only that, the 5 daimyo want to hold an award ceremony to honor the shinobi that fought in the 4th Great Ninja War, however their timing is terrible and they can't read the status quo that none of the 5 great nations wish to participate, at least not yet, as there hasn't even been time to hold a proper memorial for those that have fallen. And people need at least a month's time to grieve and mourn. These are some of the major outside village issues we are facing. Everyone in the room widened their eyes in surprise and shock at the revelation that the issues the village was facing may be much worse than they had anticipated. They all knew that the village was in dire straits, but after hearing what issues the village was actually facing, they all realized that they weren't taking it seriously enough. Koharu nodded at my assessment of the problems and said, "Then do you have any proposals for how to solve these issues?" I thought for a moment before nodding. "I do. With the matter of infrastructure, if Yamato and I work together, we can restore at least 70% of the destroyed buildings in a week, perhaps even less. To ensure the 5 great nations don't resort to war for a scramble of resources, I suggest we send diplomatic envoys to each nation and offer any form of assistance we can afford. This will help us keep friendly ties and show that we have not abandoned one another even after the war. This will also help us remain informed of the state and progress of each village. And although our military strength has drastically dropped after the war, I suggest sending out 1/3 of our manpower to search and recover the rest of the bodies of our fallen comrades across the battlefields. Once all bodies have been recovered, the village should hold an official memorial service to those who have given their life in the war. Once all villages have held their own memorial service, we should collaborate with all the nations and hold one great memorial service together to show that the allied shinobi force lives on and that the 5 great nations will continue to work together towards a path of peace. Then we give at least a month's time for mourning. Then and only then can we and the other nations agree to the daimyo's proposal to hold an award ceremony for all 5 great nations." At that moment Hamura and Koharu turned to stare at each other before they came to a silent tacit agreement and said, "Karasuma Izaya, step forth." I slightly flinched and wondered if my suggestions weren't good enough, but obeyed anyways and quickly stepped out in front of everyone. What confused me was that Koharu and Hamura were smiling as they said, "Karasuma Izaya, we have decided. You shall be named as the 6th Hokage." I widened my eyes in complete shock at what I just heard. What? I exclaimed. The 2 elders resumed their emotionless facial expressions and said, "You heard. We have decided that you are the only one suitable to take up the mantle of Hokage." I furrowed my brow as I responded, "This is out of order. The 5th Hokage, Tsunade, is still alive and well. Discussing who should be the next Hokage when the current Hokage isn't present is unorthodox and disrespectful." The 2 elders simply shook their head in disagreement as they continued, "I think not. I speak to the Jonin Council and ask that you all bear witness. Do any of you object to naming Karasuma Izaya as the 6th Hokage?" Silence. Complete silence, as no one voiced their dissent. I furrowed my brow in confusion as I turned around to face all the Jonin in the room and saw the complicated and conflicted looks on their faces. Koharu nodded and said, "As you can see, Izaya, no one here objects." She then pulled out a letter to which Hanabi widened her eyes in surprise and shock. She suddenly remembered that the letter in Koharu's hands were very familiar looking and recalled where she had seen it before. Back during the war, right after Izaya had left to resume his mission to find Kabuto, she had walked into the tent of HQ and saw Tsunade writing a letter before sending it off with a bird. Koharu unfurled the letter and said, "This is a letter written by the 5th Hokage Tsunade during the war, containing her will. In this letter she states that should anything happen to her, she names Karasuma Izaya as the 6th Hokage. The 3rd Hokage Hiruzen has also signed his name in this letter endorsing Tsunade's decision. Although Tsunade survived the war, it has taken its toll on her. It has caused her great stress and is interfering with her ability to properly manage the village as the Hokage. In this time of great turmoil and confusion, the village needs a strong Hokage with good reasoning and a powerful voice who can make fast and adequate decisions to help stabilize and rebuild the village. Izaya, while you are very young and will be the youngest Hokage in history, you have earned enough merit and reputation in the world of shinobi to be qualified for the position of Hokage. As you can see, none of the Jonin in the room have voiced any objections or dissent, which means they would endorse you as the 6th Hokage. I frowned and tried to formulate my thoughts into words. Sakura furrowed her brow as she recalled how Tsunade has been this past week. She recalled how Tsunade had gotten drunk to the point where she couldn't stand on her own. She recalled how Tsunade grumbled, complained, and cried over the death of Jiraiya and her unexpected meeting with Dan. She recalled Tsunade's pained expression when she spoke of how she was so ready to die and resolved to sacrifice herself for Naruto, but in the end she ended up living. She recalled how Tsunade spoke in anguish of how she had to live with the fact that she had to choose to give up saving the life of her sensei, Hiruzen, for Naruto's during the war. She recalled how stressed Tsunade was at having to deal with all the issues and problems of the village and the world and fulfill her duties as Hokage after the war. She recalled how useless Tsunade said she felt as the Hokage for being unable to come up with any solutions and being unable to overcome her current mental situation. After remembering all of that, Sakura steeled her resolve and spoke up. I support the decision of naming Izaya as the 6th Hokage. Lady Tsunade has already done enough for the village as Hokage. She took over the village after Orochimaru's attack. She maintained the stability of the village while having to keep Danzo's organization root at bay in the shadows and simultaneously deal with the Akatsuki in the daylight. Then she had to bear the burden of leading the village into the 4th Great Ninja War. A war that nearly took her life. Lady Tsunade deserves to live a more relaxed life now. Everyone contemplated everything that had been said this far and silently nodded in agreement. Ino turned to Sakura and said, I support the decision to name Izaya as Hokage, but is the timing really okay? I mean, we are in a state of chaos and turmoil. Wouldn't it be an odd transition? At that moment the door swung open, revealing Tsunade's disheveled form leaning against the doorframe with Shizen close behind her. Everyone in the room quickly turned and panickingly and respectfully greeted Tsunade, however she simply smirked and said, I consent to naming Izaya as the 6th Hokage. EHHH? Everyone in the room questioned aloud at Tsunade's unexpected words. Tsunade smiled and continued, what everyone has said so far is true. I need time to recover my mental health. In my current state I can't adequately govern the village. Plus, Izaya, you are more than ready to take up the mantle as Hokage. After witnessing your abilities firsthand on the battlefield, I had already decided at that time to confer to you the title as the 6th. Hanabi turned to me and walked over, gripping my hand softly and squeezed gently in a reassuring manner. She then looked up at me lovingly and nodded. I sighed internally and calmed my emotions at Hanabi's actions and looked over the room once more, seeing that no one voiced any objections. Then, with a serious look on my face, I walked over to Tsunade and knelt before her. Lord Fifth, if you would have me, then I humbly accept the responsibility of carrying on the will of fire as the 6th Hokage. Tsunade looked down at me and smiled in relief as she felt a large weight being lifted off her shoulders. Just as I stood back up to face all the Jonin in the room, I was met by everyone saluting me as they all said, we greet Lord 6th Hokage. Before I could say anything, Tsunade chimed in, Izaya. Just accept their greeting. Although your anointing as the 6th Hokage hasn't been made public to the rest of the village yet and no ceremony was held, the fact that you were appointed as the 6th Hokage in front of all the Jonin in the village is pretty much official enough. From this moment on, you will take up office as the Hokage. I will focus on recovering my mental health. That means that starting from this instant you will be performing all the duties given to that of the Hokage. I'm sure the two elders Hamura and Koharu can fill you in on the details. Shizen can drop by sometime this week as well to help get you started. I will formally introduce you as the 6th Hokage next week to the public. Good luck! Oh, and congratulations! Tsunade smiled and waltzed off, swaying and stumbling, but continued on with the aid of Shizen. It wasn't long before the Jonin meeting was temporarily halted so Koharu and Hamura could fill me in on the details of what the duties a Hokage had to perform were. It wasn't until after midnight that I was set free from all the information that the two elders wanted to pass on to me. I yawned as I tiredly waltzed into my apartment building. Luckily, my apartment building was one of the few buildings that managed to survive the damages of the war. As I got ready for bed, I noticed a presence just outside my door. "Hanabi?" I whispered. I waltzed over to the door and opened it to find Hanabi standing there ever so beautifully as the moonlight reflected off of her beautiful eyes and body. She laced our fingers together and dragged me over to the bed as we both lay down in comfortable silence. Completely exhausted, it didn't take long before I entered a deep slumber with Hanabi in my arms. Hanabi snuggled close to my chest as she heard me whisper in my sleep, "Hanabi." Hanabi felt her heart warm as she looked up from my chest and at my dashingly handsome face, and softly, she brought her lips to my own, kissing them ever so gently. "I love you," she whispered softly before sleep soon overtook her as well. Chapter 61, Managing the Village. The skies were overcast with gloomy clouds as a slight chilly breeze passed through the air. However, at this very moment the entire village was gathered down below right before the Hokage's building. "Hey, do you know what's going on?" "I don't know, don't ask me. It feels like something drastic is going to happen." "Huh? How can anything more drastic than the aftermath of the Fourth Great Ninja War happen?" "TSK. I hope whatever this important public announcement that Lord Fifth Hokage has to make is actually important. I wonder what's going on with the village. How are we going to survive this crisis? Our homes are still left in shambles. Heh. Probably will be in shambles for a long time. Here's a secret, I saw the Fifth Hokage drinking away liters upon liters of alcohol just the other day. SHHHH. Keep that information to yourself. What if she hears you? Don't you know that the Fifth is rumored to be a bit hot-tempered? I hear she could blast a mountain into smithereens with a single punch." Chatter amongst chatter could be heard from the crowd below as confusion, dissent, and growing anxiety filled the atmosphere. At this moment on top of the Hokage's building stood several elite jonin, Shizen, Tsunade, the two Konoha elders, and myself. Shizen turned to Tsunade with a bit of worry as she heard what some people were saying down below and concernedly said, "Lady Tsunade." However, before she could finish her sentence, Tsunade smirked and replied, "It's fine, Shizen. There is some truth to what the people are saying. This is precisely why it's the perfect time to name a new Hokage. Plus, what people are saying is only temporary. They are speaking how they feel at this moment. I don't take any personal offense to it." She then strode forwards, revealing herself to all the people below, causing the crowd to go completely silent. Tsunade cleared her throat and in a loud booming voice she said, "People of Konoha, I know you all have your doubts and worries about the state of the village. I stand here before you as your Fifth Hokage to tell you this. I know the war has affected you all. It has affected me as well. Yes, I admit it. The war has taken its toll on me and has hindered my ability to properly meet the needs of the village and its people. For that I can only offer you my apologies and ask for your forgiveness. I have failed you in this time of great need. And that is why I have decided to abdicate the position of the Fifth Hokage for the Sixth Hokage. Rest assured that in his hands the village will find its flame in the dark and reignite anew. He is one of the great war heroes that played a pivotal role in ending the Fourth Great Ninja War. He has earned the moniker of Konoha's White Flash, the Blind Warrior, the Lone Ninja, and the God of Shinobi. Step forth, Karasuma Izaya." The crowd below were extremely shocked at the speech Tsunade just gave and at this new development. At Tsunade's case, I slowly and confidently made my way over and stood before the crowd below. The wind in the air slowly passed by, causing my new Hokage's haori to flutter around. It was a sleek snow-white colored haori with red flames patterned along the border of the sleeves and bottom of the cloak. There were also red falling leaf patterns printed around the haori with the word Sixth Hokage on the back. I also wore long dark red pants and a white dress shirt with dark red buttons. The sleeves were rolled back to my elbows and my shirt was only buttoned to my upper chest. I wore a necklace with the letter H on it and had Muramasa strapped on the left side of my waist with a black-colored leaf forehead protector tied on the sheath. The familiar feature of my blindfold covered my eyes, accentuating my presence. The crowd took in my appearance above them all and I at them, and as if it were truly the beginning of a new dawn and age, the dark clouds in the sky slowly began to part ways and the beams of the sun's rays started to shine down on the world. This scene for some reason caused a feeling of majesty and of newfound hope to surge into the hearts of the people. Tsunade smiled and walked over to me as she handed me the signature hat of the Hokage. I slightly nodded at Tsunade and took the hat in my hands before putting it on. A moment of silence passed by as I gave the crowd a moment to take in the new changes happening. Then, I put on a serious expression and addressed the crowd below. Konoha! I know what you all must be thinking. I know what you all must be feeling. I know because I too have witnessed firsthand the devastating destruction the war has caused. The war has taken so many lives from us. It has taken our brothers, our sisters, our friends, our fathers, our mothers, and our family. It has taken the lives of our lovers, our husbands, and our wives. It has cost us the lives of our people. And while many of us grieve and continue to mourn the death of our brave fallen comrades, I know that many of you still suffer because you are unable to mourn, for the bodies of many of your loved ones have not yet been successfully recovered. Fear not. I promise you this, as the sixth Hokage, I will do all I can to recover those that have fallen in the war. I will do all I can to return to your loved ones so that you can give them the proper farewell that they deserve. The war may have taken many things away from us, but I know that it has not taken our spirit. I know that many of you still have homes left in shambles and ruin. But as the sixth Hokage, I promise you this, I will do all I can to restore your homes to what they were before, if not greater. I promise you this, as the sixth Hokage, I will do all I can to carry us through this time of great turmoil. I may be young, but I do not lack heart. I may be young, but I do not lack strength. I may be young, but I do not lack our will of fire. Those who have given their lives and fought so bravely in the war did not leave us behind with nothing. The will of fire was with them until the very end. So long as we bear the will of fire within us, then they shall forever live on in our hearts. People of Konoha, do you still bear the will of fire within you? The people of Konoha felt a stirring emotion of hope and power fill them from the inside. It was a strange feeling. There were still dark clouds overcast in the sky, however, there were parts in the sky where the clouds shifted away, allowing the beautiful rays of the sun to shine through the darkness. The incredible, heartwarming, and powerful speech that the sixth Hokage was giving ignited something deep within all the people of Konoha. Konoha's people always carried a strong bond of familiarity and passion and pride with each other. With all the turmoil and chaos in the world, it was as if they had forgotten who they were. Like they were lost in a sea of dark storm clouds. However, after hearing Izaya's speech, they felt a glimpse of the will of fire reignite within themselves, and they all shouted back with a great vigor that seemed to have been lost before. The will of fire lives on inside of us. We have not abandoned the will of fire. As I stood atop the Hokage's building staring down at the crowd below, I silently nodded to myself in approval of the crowd's response. I then continued on, the will of fire lives on in each and every one of us. So long as we do not forget that, we will always have hope. So long as we do not forget that, we will always be able to walk out of the darkness. You are the flames that light the world when all is filled in darkness. Let us not forget the power that we have when we all stand together. So, stand together with me now. As one village and not one person. And together, we can and will burn brighter than any star. The crowd shouted with a newfound vigor of hope and strength. I nodded at the crowd's reaction and remained standing before them for a few more minutes before retreating back into the Hokage's office to finally begin putting my plans into action. I let out a soft sigh as I looked at the Hokage's seat and plopped down. Several mountainous stacks of paperwork piled up as high as the ceiling and were spread around the room. Not long after, Tsunade, Shizune, and the two elders walked in, all with smiles on their faces. Tsunade was the first to break the ice. Izaya, I knew I didn't choose wrong naming you as the sixth. You managed to reinvigorate the entire village with one single speech. Incredible. Koharu and Hamura simply nodded in agreement. We talked a bit longer before everyone left the room, all but Shizune. I tilted my head in confusion. Did you need something, Shizune? She shook her head. No. Technically, I'm still the Hokage's aide. I raised my eyebrow in a bit of surprise before nodding and replied, Shizune. Like Tsunade, I believe you have already done enough for the village. I appreciate the fact that you would be willing to continue to assist me as the Hokage's aide. However, I believe that Tsunade needs you more. You should be by her side and help facilitate her recovery. From this moment forth, should you wish it, I will relieve you of your duties as the Hokage's aide. Shizune felt her body tremble before a teardrop fell from her eyes. She quickly wiped it away and bowed. Thank you. Thank you, Izaya. I mean Lord Sixth. I should quickly return to Lady Tsunade's side. Just before she walked out of the room she paused and turned back. Lord Sixth. Before I go, if there is anything I can do please let me know. I thought for a moment before nodding my head. Then, Shizune, for your last act as an aide, please send a message for an immediate Jonin Council meeting. She quickly nodded and saluted before disappearing. I watched as she disappeared before taking a sweep of the Hokage's office, noting all the troublesome paperwork, and let out a sigh. Well, guess I should get started. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Poof! 20 clones instantly got to work on the paperwork as I stood up and headed towards the conference room where the Jonin meeting would be held. I didn't have to wait long before all the Jonin in the village arrived and settled in. Kakashi walked up to me and said, Lord Sixth, everyone is here. I nodded in appreciation and started my address. Everyone! Now that a chain of command has finally been set in order, it's time we solve the issues that we are currently facing. First, Hatake Kakashi, I hereby promote you to Jonin Commander. Kakashi was surprised but quickly replied, though I am not as competent as the late Jonin Commander Naruto, I will do my best to live up to his reputation. I nodded in approval and continued. I name Might Guy as the Vice Jonin Commander. The role of the Jonin Commander and Vice Jonin Commander shall be to oversee Konoha's military. You both shall be in charge of overseeing the training and disciplining of all Jonin and Chunin. You both will also be in charge of receiving all mission requests in the village from D rank to A rank. Only S rank missions will be reserved for I, the Hokage, to give out. Next is the matter of diplomatic issues. Kimimaro, I assign you the role as Konoha's diplomatic envoy to Iwagakure. Naruto, I am assigning you the role as the diplomatic envoy to Sunagakure. Choji, I assign you the role as Konoha's envoy to Kumogakure. Haku, I assign you the role as Konoha's diplomatic envoy to Kirigakure. And finally, Niji, I assign you the role as the diplomatic envoy to the Land of Iron. Sai, I appoint you the chief of police of Konoha's police force. After the meeting, go discuss with Guy about who will be adequate to join the police task force and draw up a list. Then I want you to begin assigning roles to the task force to help calm public unrest and keep peace and order within the village. Guy, after you finish helping Sai with this task, I want you to take 1/3 of our military strength and return to the battlefields to search for and recover any and all bodies of our fallen comrades. Sakura, you will be tasked with overseeing Konoha's hospital as the head medical chief. I will focus on rebuilding the foundations of the village's homes and other structures. Shikamaru, I name you as the Hokage's aide. That means you will be my advisor. I can only entrust this task to you. Now, if there are any objections, please speak now. Right as I finished giving out my commands, everyone nodded in approval at how quickly and decisively I put things in place. I nodded in appreciation at everyone's understanding and said, Yamato, Kakashi, Sasuke, Irika, Shikamaru, you all remain behind. Everyone else is dismissed. Yes. Everyone saluted before leaving. The 5 left remaining in the room stood completely silent until Sasuke broke the ice. So, what did you need us for, Izaya? There are some important matters I wish to discuss with you all. You can go afterwards. First, Irika, with the aftermath of the war, the educational system in the village is at a standstill. I then handed a pile of papers to him before continuing, I believe you are best to manage the rebuilding of the academy. Here are the plans I have for rebuilding, restructuring, and reforming the educational system of the village. I want you to take a look over them and tell me what you think. If they seem reasonable and doable, then I want you to oversee the implementation of these reforms into the academy. Irika was greatly surprised but quickly nodded and smiled. Yes. I humbly accept honor. I will do my utmost and review these documents, Izaya. I mean Lord Sixth. I smiled as I watched Irika excitedly leave the room to review the documents I handed him. I then turned to Yamato and handed him a letter. Yamato-sensei, I need you to track down Orochimaru and give him this letter. Everyone in the room was shocked at my words as the revelation hit them that Orochimaru was still alive. Only Sasuke was unfazed. Yamato stammered, Orochimaru? What? He's still alive? But how? And where is he? And before Yamato could finish I cut him off and handed him another letter. Yamato-sensei. I can only entrust this task to you. You'll understand when you read this letter. It'll have all the details pertaining to your mission inside. Don't worry, Orochimaru won't do anything to you. He'll understand once he reads my letter. While his character is questionable, the truth is his skills are still invaluable. Yamato let out a sigh before nodding his head. All right. I'll do my best. I nodded in appreciation as Yamato disappeared from the room. I then turned to Kakashi and said, Kakashi-sensei, not only will you be Jonin commander, but I want you to be acting Hokage. Everyone was incredibly shocked at what I just said. I placed my hand up to stop any of them from saying anything. Let me explain. First, all of you follow me back to the Hokage's office. As we walked in the office, everyone had a weird expression as they saw 20 of my clones going through all the paperwork in the room, neatly organizing them. Not a moment later and they all disappeared in a puff of smoke. I curled my lips in a smile and nodded at the handiwork of my clones. I then returned my attention to Sasuke, Kakashi, and Shikamaru. Now, picking up where I left off. Kakashi, I want you to be acting Hokage. It doesn't mean I'm enacting or appointing you as Hokage, but it means that when I'm not around, you will have the authority to do most of the things that I would need to do. In essence, giving the Hokage's seal of approval on all of this paperwork. Having the final say of yes or no in making certain decisions involving the village. Things like these. Kakashi frowned and replied, but why would you need to give me this kind of authority? Are you implying that you won't be around? I let out a soft sigh before responding. Correct. Now, I'm not saying that I'm abandoning my duties as Hokage, but rather there are things I need to do that go beyond the duties of a Hokage. As the Hokage, I will protect the village at all costs. However, with the events that we witnessed in the Fourth Great Ninja War and with Otsutsuki Kagaya's arrival, we should be well aware that we are not the only ones in this world. There are beings out there that have the potential to become world-level threats. How can I protect the village if there is the potential that the entire world could be put in danger? This is why I am giving you the authority of acting Hokage, Kakashi-sensei. I'll still be around, but just for the times when I'm not, that is when this role will be of use. Plus Shikamaru will be the Hokage's advisor. With you both at the helm, I can rest more easily if and when I decide to go on an extended period of leave to learn more about the Otsutsuki clan and the world. Everyone furrowed their brow in deep focus after hearing what I said and tacitly agreed that this was indeed a smart move. I then turned to Sasuke. This brings me to my next topic. Sasuke, I want you to spend at least a month here in Konoha getting used to the power of your Rinnegan. After that I apologize, but I am assigning you a difficult task. An incredibly dangerous S-rank mission. You are the only one I can trust this mission to. I want you to explore the world and try to find any trace of any remaining white Zetsu and hunt them down. I also want you to look for clues and information on Kagaya and the Otsutsuki clan. Now this doesn't mean that I want you to remain away from the village indefinitely, but this mission of yours will require a lot of your time being spent away from the village. Will you accept? Sasuke furrowed his brow in a moment of silence but ultimately nodded in agreement. I'll do it. This whole thing about Kagaya and the Otsutsuki clan has been bothering me as well. I can't sit around and do nothing. I was planning on going out in the world and looking for clues about the Otsutsuki clan anyways. I nodded in appreciation. I then finally turned to Shikamaru. Shikamaru, the greatest tasks fall on your shoulders. I know this is a lot to ask, but no one else will be able to fulfill these duties other than you. First, my clones have already gone through the pile of paperwork here and have organized them according to their proper categories such as finance, trade and business, missions, construction and infrastructure, educational systems, international information systems, etc. Honestly, I can't believe that all the past Hokages have been doing this work on their own. As the current Hokage, I don't believe this is the correct path for a Hokage to take. A Hokage should not be someone who is swamped by paperwork all day long and night hidden behind a desk. A Hokage should be someone who is deeply involved with the village and its people and pioneer new ways to move the village forward, keeping the village stable. I have decided to reform the system. Shikamaru, for your first task, I want you to find suitable people who have experience in these different fields and create a working task force that can effectively process the paperwork according to their areas of expertise. Once it has been processed through their trained eyes and work, then and only then will the final draft of the paperwork be brought to the Hokage's office. As the Hokage, I will look over the final details and ensure that everything makes sense and is in proper order before giving my seal of approval. Then it can be filed into the village's system. Once that is done, I want you to assist me in solidifying the foundations for the allied shinobi force. Shikamaru raised his eyebrows in surprise and remarked, solidifying the foundations of the allied shinobi force? I assume you already have a proposition in mind on how to do it? After all, every village is currently facing an internal crisis. I nodded. That is why I sent diplomatic envoys to each nation. The first major reason is to show that we have not forgotten to show support for one another. The second is to actually provide support where we can. And I have just the means to do so. I will personally journey to each nation and provide assistance in rebuilding their foundations using my wood style if they agree. The third major reason is that, should each nation see that we are doing our best to help each other in this time of need, it will continue to strengthen our bonds. Not only did we fight a war together to save the world, we all lost comrades on the battlefield and felt the same pain. And now, after the war, we didn't forget about each other, but rather we have gone out of our way to provide assistance in any way we can. This will help solidify the notion of the allied shinobi force as a good thing and prevent us from disassembling it. I plan to speak to the other Kages soon about establishing an allied shinobi force headquarters together. Shikamaru tilted his head as he asked, an allied shinobi force headquarters, where do you plan to build the base? It can't be within the territory of one of the 5 great nations. That could cause problems later down the line. And establishing it in the Land of Iron is too much to ask for the samurai. They could eventually see it as the shinobi world trying to take over their samurai customs and ways. I nodded at Shikamaru's interjection. Correct. I plan to build it in Amigakure. Amigakure? The small nation where the village hidden in the rain is? But, will they allow such a thing? I thought momentarily before responding. I believe they will. First, Amigakure had always been in a state of poverty due to past wars. Even under Hanzo's rule, the economy and the land weren't the best. Then there was a civil war and Nagato took over. But after Nagato passed away, there have been no stable government head in place. A clone of mine scouted the area a few days ago and the nation is currently in complete unrest. Many different types of people are trying to scramble for power in that region. I don't think this is what Nagato would have wanted for his home nation. I wish to honor Nagato by bringing some form of stability to Amigakure. I'll go there and speak to the people and do my best to convince them to allow the 5 great nations to build the headquarters of the allied shinobi forces there. I'll get permission from the other Kages to grant Amigakure certain diplomatic immunities through the establishment of the allied shinobi force. This is also great for Amigakure because with the allied shinobi forces headquarters there, international trade routes leading from all 5 nations will flow through their nation and increase the amount of revenue they can generate. If on the off chance that the people of Amigakure don't accept the building of the ASF HQ there, then we can only look elsewhere. But I'm quite confident my plan will work. Knock knock. HM? We all turned towards the door as I said, enter. At that moment a small boy and old man walked in carrying various stone carving tools and said, "Ahem ahem. Excuse me, Lord Sixth. I am the stone carver for the Hokage faces on the cliffside. I've come to take your measurements. I hope this isn't a bad time." I scratched the side of my cheek awkwardly before turning my attention back at Sasuke, Shikamaru, and Kakashi. Ahem. Well, that'll be all for now. You can be dismissed. The three of them nodded and quickly disappeared from the room. The stone carver quickly walked over to me in seriousness with many different tools as he started to measure every angle of my face before commenting, "Can you take off your blindfold? I'm about to place some clay mold over your face so we can get a small representation of how your face should look on the cliffside." I awkwardly laughed before responding, "Ahem. Is it possible for you to just carve the blindfold on the cliffside as well? Most people recognize me with the blindfold on." "What? You want the blindfold on? HMPF, alright, well, it's your face going on the cliffside, not mine." He then proceeded to place some clay mold over my face as I inwardly thought, he sure is carefree. In less than an hour my meeting with the stone carver was over as I let out a sigh of relief. I quickly stretched before heading out to the village and started fixing as much of the damaged infrastructure as I could. It wasn't until late at night when I finally finished and returned to the Hokage's quarters, which were now mine. I quickly took a much-needed hot shower from such a long day of work. I let out a deep sigh as I slowly stepped out to dry myself off with a towel and thought, Hanabi and I have been so busy that we haven't gotten to see each other in nearly a week. I want to see her. HM? I turned towards the door to my room and smiled as I felt Hanabi's presence. Is she psychic or something? Always showing up when I need her. I quickly wrapped the towel around my waist and opened the door only to be completely stunned. I gulped down my saliva as I took in what Hanabi was wearing. It was a thin nightgown that was definitely see-through and it showed off her curves perfectly. I quickly snapped out of my daze and dragged her inside, shutting the door behind us before I pinned her to the wall and said, "WH, what are you thinking? Wearing something like that out in public? What if someone saw you?" She smiled teasingly and whispered, "What do you mean? I'm fully clothed." I gritted my teeth and pinned her hands above her head. "Why you? I'll gouge out everyone's eyes who saw you like this." She chuckled playfully before saying, "You're the Hokage now. That's inappropriate." I growled, "And wearing what you're wearing out in public is inappropriate." She tiptoed a bit so she could whisper right in my ear. "Don't worry, I wore a cloak. I only just removed it. I wanted to surprise you." My entire body started to overheat at our close proximity and in having the newfound knowledge that Hanabi wore this just for me. I took a step back as the moonlight shone through the window, illuminating all of her for me to see. It was at this moment that Hanabi also took note of what I was wearing, which was nothing but a towel around my waist. Her breathing grew rapidly and her body began to heat up uncontrollably. Just now she finally took in my full physique. He grew taller, she thought. She involuntarily licked her lips as she took in my full height at 188 centimeters tall. She took in the several droplets of water from my shower earlier dripping down my chest. She gulped as she took note of my abs and muscular frame. And finally, she couldn't take it anymore as she whispered, "Izaya, please." And I lost it at her words of want and desire. Our lips crashed with fervor like we hadn't had water in weeks. Our hands roamed each other's body like we'd been starved of human touch for days. I couldn't take it anymore. I wanted her. I needed her. Just so much. Not being able to have any alone time with Hanabi for nearly an entire week was agonizing. Without any restraint, I gripped her thin nightgown and ripped it cleanly in half, prompting a shout of surprise from her. The next moment I lifted her off the ground as we disappeared and reappeared on my large king-sized bed from the use of my Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Once again this elicited a shout of surprise from her as she laughed a bit at my impatience. Use your imagination, you freaky frogs. 1 month later. I sat in my office and stared out the window that overlooked the village and nodded silently to myself in approval at the rate in which the village was recovering. I had already restored all of the village's damaged residential and infrastructural buildings, and the report guy sent me stated that they had already recovered more than 95% of the missing bodies on the battlefield. I sent a clone to each of the great nations to help them rebuild their own infrastructure, and we are now currently rebuilding new and better domestic and international trade routes. Just last week, I was able to convince the people of Amagakure to let the 5 great nations establish the ASF HQ in their country. The negotiations went much better than expected. At that moment, the door to my office opened as Shikamaru walked in. "Shikamaru, you're back." "Yeah. It was a pain, but I got all the data and information." I nodded in appreciation. "So, what do the numbers look like?" Shikamaru sighed before replying. "The war really did a number on the villages. The military strength of each village has dropped nearly to half after the war. Before the war, Kumogakure's military might was approximately 17,000 shinobi strong. For Konoha it was 15,000. Iwagakure was 16,000. Kirigakure and Sunagakure were 11,000, and the Land of Iron was 10,000. We went into the war with approximately 80,000 strong shinobi and samurai. But now, after the war, for Kumo it's noted at 8567. For Konoha it's 7843. For Iwagakure it's 8021. Kirigakure is 6558, Sunagakure is 6472, and the Land of Iron is 4733. Collectively, the ASF came out of the war with a total of 42,194 shinobi and samurai left. This was without a doubt the most brutal and bloody great ninja war in all of history. There was a moment of silence between us as we both just let the numbers sink in. I let out a sigh before nodding my head in appreciation for Shikamaru's hard work. "Thank you for collecting this data. It's essential for us to know just how much damage was dealt to us after the war. The good news is that Konoha's rate of recovery is going by much faster than I anticipated. The ASF has a place where it can begin building its HQ, trade routes are being re-established, and I estimate that within the next week we'll have recovered all the bodies of our fallen comrades on the battlefield. At that time we can hold a proper village-wide memorial service in remembrance of them. Then, next month I'll discuss with the other Kages about accepting the proposal of the 5 daimyos to hold an international military merit award ceremony. The daimyos are bored and have been continuing to pester us about it. I think they'll be happy to hear that there'll finally be a date set in stone. Plus, this will be good in building relations with the daimyos of the other lands. It'll be great if they can continue to get along like this." Shikamaru nodded in agreement. "That sounds good. Is there anything more you need me to do right now?" I thought for a moment before shaking my head. "Not currently. I'm expecting someone in a little bit here, so you can take a break." "HM? Is this someone very important?" Shikamaru inquired curiously. I nodded in seriousness. "Incredibly important." Shikamaru's interest was immediately piqued as he asked, "Who is it?" I paused for a moment before replying, "Yakushi Kabuto." What? Kabuto? He's alive? Wait! Didn't you release the reanimation jutsu by defeating Kabuto? You didn't kill him? I waited for Shikamaru to voice all his questions and doubts before I calmly answered. I did indeed defeat Kabuto and casted a Jinjutsu on him to release the reanimation. But I also casted a powerful Uchiha Forbidden Jutsu on him to change his fate. Even though I changed his fate, it doesn't excuse the fact that he played a major role in the reason why many lives were lost in the 4th Great Ninja War. That is why I am meeting with him. He isn't a free man. But he is a changed man. I am meeting with him to give out his sentence." Shikamaru fidgeted a bit uncomfortably but ultimately let out a deep sigh and nodded his head. "Well, you are the 6th Hokage. And we grew up together. I trust your decision, Izaya, but can I at least sit in and be a witness?" I nodded and pointed to a seat in the room. "That's fine. Make yourself comfortable." Shikamaru nodded in appreciation as a knock on the door could be heard at that moment. "Enter," I replied. Kabuto walked in and stood before me completely cloaked to hide his look and said, "Izaya, No. Rather I should now call you the sixth Hokage. I nodded. It's been a while, Kabuto. He nodded back and took a seat. Lord Sixth. I know that the crimes I have committed cannot be pardoned. Many shinobi lives were lost because of me. I am prepared to serve any sentence you give. I won't run away from this responsibility. I am ready to atone for my sins. Kabuto. So you have finally come to terms with who you are and are no longer trying to impersonate someone else. I'm glad to see this. But you are right, the crimes you committed during the war cannot be so easily pardoned, therefore, your sentence shall be a lifetime of servitude assisting the allied shinobi forces in all things that it would require of you. Once the ASF HQ is built, then that is where you shall be stationed. You will spend the rest of your life repenting for your sins by assisting the ASF in trying to do good, whether that requires you to perform charity work, research, or giving educational instruction, etc. Kabuto nodded. I am prepared. Thank you for your leniency. I let out a soft sigh before instructing, then returned to Orochimaru's side for the time being. Once the ASF HQ is built, a messenger will be sent to retrieve you. You are dismissed. As Kabuto left, Shikamaru turned to me with a look of curiosity and said, So, you've decided that Kabuto is to serve the ASF, huh? Is that a wise move? I nodded without hesitation. Yes. Kabuto has affected the lives of not only Konoha but the entire world. Konoha alone does not have the right to hold him accountable. Him serving the ASF will allow for all the great nations to monitor him. And with Kabuto working for the ASF, then all the great nations will benefit. Shikamaru pondered quietly to himself for a moment before asking a bit doubtfully, did he really turn a new leaf? I mean, he does seem different and his aura doesn't feel that creepy anymore, but does someone really just turn a new leaf like that? I smirked. Don't underestimate the power of the Uchiha's forbidden jutsu. It came at a high price. I reckon that other than me, no one else alive knows how to use this forbidden jutsu. It's not a jutsu that can just be used whenever I want. Most likely, I will never cast it ever again. Now Shikamaru was truly curious as to exactly what kind of forbidden jutsu this was, but just elected to let it go and trust in the sixth Hokage. Knock knock. HM? Both Shikamaru and I turned our attention back to the door as I replied, Enter. As the door opened, it revealed to be Irika. Oh! Irika, what are you doing here? Shikamaru asked. I came by to tell Lord Sixth that the new academy building is completely finished now and can begin accepting new students as soon as next week. I widened my eyes in surprise and smiled as I replied, that was much faster than I expected. Everyone must have put in a lot of time, work, and effort to get the academy back up and running this quickly. I'm glad to hear that. Excellent work on managing everything, Irika. Irika simply shook his head. No. Thank you, Lord Sixth. It's because of you that the village can get back on its feet so quickly, and it's thanks to your ideas that the academy will now have a much more comprehensive system in place. I simply smiled and nodded my head. Well, I'm glad everything went as planned. Then, go ahead and start open enrollment for the academy. Yes. Irika responded excitedly as he saluted before taking his leave. Shikamaru turned to me and said, Looks like everything is going well so far. That's good. I nodded in agreement. Yes. It is. Darkness soon blanketed the sky as night rolled around the corner. I stood atop the Hokage stone faces and looked to my left where the process of constructing my own face was being held in progress. HM? It was at that moment that I took note of a peculiar crow flying around in the distance before it dived down into a deep and dark forest. I furrowed my brow as a feeling of curiosity tugged at me. In less than a moment's notice, I had disappeared from where I was standing and stood at the edge of the dark forest. Without hesitation, I walked inside, taking in the sight before me. Dense trees and large bushes. Lush green leaves and beautiful wildflowers strewn about the forest floor. I wandered around for a bit before I took note of a small lake hidden within a small clearing of the forest. The moonlight illuminated the water, creating a sparkling effect as if it were filled with shimmering diamonds. The odd thing was that there was a tree in the middle of the lake. It wasn't huge, but it wasn't small either. It was incredibly ancient looking and seemed as if it had withstood the erosion of time. I walked right up to the edge of the lake but paused and simply stared at the old tree centered in the middle of the lake. It was at that moment I heard loud cawing noises, prompting me to look all around me. In the trees all around the lake were black crows neatly perched as they stared down at me in curiosity. "Oh, a human?" I heard a voice say. I narrowed my eyes and turned my attention back to the old tree where I heard the voice come from. At that moment a three-legged crow flew out of the old ancient tree and perched right on top of it as it stared directly at me with its golden eyes. I raised my eyebrow in curiosity and said, "And who do I have the pleasure of meeting?" There was a moment of silence between us before the crow responded, "I am called Yatagarasu, the Lord of all Crows. It's been a while since I've last seen or spoken to a human. You did well to find this place." "The Lord of all Crows?" My apologies, I had no idea I was in the presence of someone as esteemed as yourself. I am Karasuma Izaya. It's an honor to make your acquaintance. I came by this place by chance. That's all. Yes. Through my crows I happen to know who you are. You are the current Hokage, are you not? I nodded in response. Correct. I am the 6th Hokage. I see. Well, 6th Hokage Izaya, our meeting here can be said to be one of chance. Perhaps even fate. The last person I ever spoke to was Uchiha Itachi. I slightly flinched at the revelation that this crow knew Itachi. You knew Uchiha Itachi? Ka. Yes. Itachi formed a contract with my kind. That is how he can summon crows. He and I have met on several occasions. An interesting human he was. I mourn his death to this day. I pondered to myself a bit before asking, "Lord Garasu, might I make a presumptuous request of you?" Yatagarasu tilted its head to the side before cawing and responded, "What is it that you wish of me, child? Would it be possible to make an exchange?" "Oh? What kind of exchange?" "If you are willing to give me 3 crows, I will do my best to give you something of your request that you deem equal in exchange." A moment of silence passed between us as I felt a bit nervous for requesting something that seemed completely out of the ordinary from the Lord of all Crows. However, Yatagarasu quickly replied, "Interesting. Very interesting. Very well. I shall make you a counter-offer. I shall give you 6 crows. Do with them as you will. I will also let you sign a summoning contract with us crows. In return, I want you to pass on to me the formula for the 8 trigram sealing jutsu and allow me to pay a visit to the corpse of Uchiha Itachi at least once so that I may send him my farewell." I flinched a little inside at the unexpected development. I never imagined that not only would this Lord of all Crows accept my offer, he made a counter-offer. But why would he want the formula for the 8 trigram sealing jutsu? It's only useful for sealing chakra into something. And what is his purpose for wanting to visit the corpse of Itachi? It can't really be to just send him a farewell, can it? I pondered for a bit, thinking about what kind of ramifications this might have, but couldn't really think of one, so I nodded and replied, "Very well. I will give you the formula for the 8 trigram sealing jutsu, however you must promise never to teach it to another. As for Itachi, I will allow you to visit his corpse once, but within my presence. Are these terms agreeable?" Yatagarasu cawed amiably as he replied, "Amen. Then let us exchange." I quickly signed a contract with the crows as 6 crows flew down to my side. I then quickly wrote the formula for the 8 trigrams sealing jutsu on a scroll and handed it over to Lord Garasu. "Lord Garasu, this scroll, once you open it, it will not close. You will only have 30 seconds to memorize its content. Afterwards it will immediately be destroyed. Should you open it within the presence of another, I have rigged the scroll to immediately self-destruct. Please forgive me for my precaution." Lord Garasu simply cawed. "No matter. I understand your desire to protect the precious knowledge of your village. I have no hidden agenda to share this technique with anyone, so it matters not. I nodded in appreciation for his understanding and continued, as for the matter of Itachi, how about next week on the full moon at midnight, fly to the top of the Hokage rock faces of Konoha and I will be there waiting for you. Lord Garasu flapped its wings amiably before replying, very well. He then flew in a circle before re-entering the old and ancient-looking tree in the center of the lake. I stood there at the edge of the lake in complete silence and couldn't shake the feeling that this entire ordeal was a bit too mysterious and perhaps too coincidental. Could it be that Lord Garasu purposefully led me here? He knew what he wanted from me a bit too quickly and knew that only I could give him what he wanted. I let out a sigh, since thinking about it anymore wouldn't really get me anywhere, and walked off as the 6 crows followed above me. Just as I made it out of the forest's edge, I turned back to look behind me, noting that the structure of the forest had shifted and changed. Huh, I said simply before turning my attention to the 6 crows before me. Now then, you 6 will be my eyes in the sky. Chapter 62, The End and a New Beginning. Time skipped 2 years. I sat in complete silence within the Hokage's office as I stared at the calendar before me in deep contemplation. The seconds slowly trickled by, with the only sounds being the tapping of my fingers on the table and the clock on the wall ticking away. I finally let out a loud sigh, speaking to no one in particular. Haya, what am I going to do? Naruto and Hinata's wedding is coming up soon. So many people want to attend, but how am I going to decide who gets to go? I totally skimmed this part in my past life and went right to the end. Plus, things aren't exactly the same as they were as I remembered them. And on top of that, I feel sort of guilty. As the feelings of guilt and frustration welled up inside of me, I turned to look at the picture on my desk. It was a picture of Hanabi and I as we happily walked through the gardens of Konoha. Hanabi, I'm sure a lot of people thought that Hanabi and I would get married first, but things have just been so hectic. As the Hokage, I had to deal with all the problems and issues related to the village and those related outside of the village. As for Hanabi, she's been busy by taking up most of the responsibilities the Hyuga clan head would have in preparation for when she actually takes over. I sighed once more as I thought to myself, we haven't had the time to really sit down and talk about our future together. I still love her more than anything, but things haven't calmed down until just recently. After 2 long years, the village is finally not only stable, but starting to prosper. The ASF HQ has been established and the relations between all 5 great ninja villages is better than ever. But before I even had the chance to ask Hanabi to marry me, Naruto proposed to Hinata first. Everyone is currently focused on their wedding, so it would be weird for Hanabi and I to get married around the same time. It might make for an awkward situation where people might not know whose wedding to focus on. I'll have to wait until after Naruto and Hinata's wedding. I promise you, Hanabi, I said as I glanced at the ring box next to our picture. I was brought out of my mental thoughts as a voice spoke within my mind at that moment. A voice that I haven't heard in a long time. Senko's voice. Izaya. It took longer than I had anticipated, but I've recovered to the point where I no longer need to take any energy from you. You should feel that after all this time, having only access to half of your chakra reserves, you've only grown stronger. Now with your full chakra reserves back, your chakra pool is massive. No less than that of a tailed beast's. I was still momentarily dazed at Senko's sudden interjection, but quickly recovered and happily rejoiced. Senko, you're finally awake. It's about time. Yes, yes. I apologize for taking so much of your energy all this time. Then have you finally fully recovered? I can't say that I have. I've recovered to the point where I can freely speak with you, however I am still unable to move about on my own. I can't yet detach from your body. And truthfully, I may never be able to recover to the point where I can truly detach from your body, but one can hope. I slightly frowned at Senko's comment. Senko, how did you get so injured? A moment of silence filled the room before Senko answered. A long while back you asked me how I knew about the Otsutsuki clan and Kagaya. I nodded as that memory resurfaced. Right. But we didn't have a lot of time then, since we were in the middle of fighting Kagaya. Back then you mentioned something about the Heavenly Ocean Sage Aotatsumi, the Otsutsuki clan, and something about the Heavenly Purge. What is all of that? Oh, I'm surprised. Has your brother Haku not told you anything about the Heavenly Ocean Sage Aotatsumi after all this time? Surely he would know a thing or two by now. Well, he has mentioned some things. But even Haku doesn't know much. From what we can gather, Aotatsumi came from a place called the Heavenly Plane. He uses a special power called Heavenly Sage Mode. It's a power that is even greater than Sage Mode and can grant one the strength to move mountains and create oceans. Something happened in the Heavenly Plane that forced Aotatsumi to flee, and somehow he ended up here on this planet. That's about as far as we've gotten. After Aotatsumi lent Haku some power during our fight against Kaguya, according to Haku, he fell into a deep slumber to recover his power. My guess is that he must have been gravely injured like you were, Senko. By the way, doesn't that mean you also come from this so-called Heavenly Plane? Senko took a moment to soak in everything I said before responding. I see. So Aotatsumi must have been gravely injured as well. That does make sense. And yes, you are correct. I am indeed a being that came from the Heavenly Plane. I furrowed my brow in deep thought and interest. Care to elaborate? Senko let out a long sigh. Yeah, very well. I will do my best to narrate to you the events that have happened and have led up to this point. But it is quite long, so be prepared. I simply nodded. Senko pondered for a moment as he thought about where to start. I suppose an introduction is where I shall begin. Whatever you thought I was before, you can forget about it. What I truly am is a divine phoenix. My race comes from a place known as the Heavenly Plane. Before I delve more into it, tell me, how much do you know about the Otsutsuki clan? I frowned at Senko's question and thought about it for a bit before shaking my head. Honestly, I don't know much. From what I can garner, they are beings that come from outside of this world. They should be incredibly powerful and likely have some sort of hierarchical order within their clan. Please enlighten me. Senko let out a soft sigh. Well, I don't blame you for having limited knowledge of their clan. The Otsutsuki clan. Where do they come from? Why are they in your world? Why do they seek to destroy it? What is their purpose? Very well, I shall enlighten you. Tell me, what is the Sharingan? I raised my eyebrow at Senko's sudden change in the direction of his narrative, but decided that if Senko was asking, then it must somehow be related. I thought about the question he asked before responding. The Sharingan is a powerful dojutsu and Kekkei Genkai? It's related to the Rinnegan and Rinne Sharingan? And I guess somehow related to the Otsutsuki clan? Senko just let out another deep sigh. Yeah. I scratched the side of my cheek awkwardly. Hey, that was an honest answer. If you don't like it, you could just tell me straight up. Don't you know that storytelling is more interesting when you are one of the participants? Just as I was about to answer, Senko chimed in with a defeated voice, never mind. I shall ask and answer my own questions. Just listen well, Yimling. Ahem. Where to begin? The Sharingan. You all have many different terms for Sharingan, such as the copy will eye, mirror will eye, the eyes that reflect the heart, or heaven's eye. The truth is that the heaven's eye is the closest term to the truth. The Sharingan is the eye that reflects the heavens. It may seem auspicious, but it has such a bloody history. After the Sharingan, one awakens the Mangekyo Sharingan. Then the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. It then becomes the Rinnegan or the Samsara Eye, otherwise known as the Eye of Life and Death. And finally, after the Rinnegan is born the Rinne Sharingan, otherwise known as the Samsara Eyes that reflects the heavens. They are so named because they are a power that belonged to the rulers of the Heavenly Plane. The Heavenly Plane is the highest dimension of the universe where beings akin to gods reside. There were many races that belonged to the Heavenly Plane, such as my own race. Even the toads of Mount Maiboku, the snakes of Ryuchi Cave, and the slugs of Shikatsu Forest are somewhat descendants from the Heavenly Plane. It was once a place that flourished with color and joy, but now it is a place of murder, darkness, thieves, oppression, and tyranny. Before I explain further, you must also come to understand what the Byakugan is. The Byakugan is also known as the all-seeing white eyes. They are the distinct feature of the Otsutsuki clan. The Otsutsuki clan was a servant to the rulers of the heavenly plane, and they had various positions imparted to them, but the most common was to act as sentinels due to the power of their eyes. To better understand their status, I will use the shinobi system you are familiar with. To compare, the sole ruler of the heavenly plane would be equivalent to the leader of the 5 Kage. Something like the supreme commander of your allied shinobi force during the war. The elders of the ruling clan would be equivalent to the position of the other Kage. Then all the relatives of the ruling clan would have the equivalent status to what you shinobi call Jonin. The Otsutsuki clan would have a status equivalent to what you shinobi call Chunin and Jinin. Then what was the name of the clan that ruled the heavenly plane? That clan was known as the Amenamenakanushi Heavenly Clan. I was immediately lost on the long name that Senko just said and involuntarily interjected, "Wait. The what heavenly clan?" Senko just let out a sigh. The Amenamenakanushi Heavenly Clan. Don't interrupt, please, it is a long story. Now, where was I? Oh yes, the emperor of the royal clan was called Taiyu. Amenamenakanushi Taiyu. Now what does this all mean? Well, all members of the Amenamenakanushi clan, or royal clan, possessed either the Rinne Sharingan or some derivative of it such as the Rinnegan and etc. The Otsutsuki clan served directly under the royal clan. One day the prince and heir to the royal clan fell in love with the daughter of the Otsutsuki clan's patriarch. She, however, did not love him in return. The Otsutsuki clan saw this as an opportunity to overthrow the royal clan and attempted to force her to be with him. She refused at first until the clan told her of their plan to overthrow the royal clan. Although she held no hatred for the royal clan, she loved her father the patriarch dearly and wished to be of use to him, so she agreed to be with the prince. One day she and the prince had a child. That child, named Kegyuin, was born with the powers of both a strange and unique Byakugan and the Rinne Sharingan. The power that he possessed was unlike any ever seen before. As she raised her child alongside the prince, she unknowingly began to fall in love with him. By then the child Kegyuin had already grown old enough to learn and wield his power. Torn between choosing the prince and her own father caused her endless grief and sorrow. She was also far along her second pregnancy at that time. Without knowing what to do or who to choose, she elected to leave the clan and the prince with her son, Kegyuin. The elders of the Otsutsuki clan discovered her plans and imprisoned her before she could escape without the knowledge of their patriarch. Since Kegyuin, born of the union between both the royal clan and the Otsutsuki clan, had already learned to wield his power, the Otsutsuki clan gathered their most skilled and powerful members to kill the royal prince in a sinister plot. After they succeeded, they planted false evidence and blamed it on the royal clan to win over Kegyuin's favor. In his rage, he helped the Otsutsuki clan wage war against the royal clan. It was also during this time that the patriarch discovered that the elders had made movements behind his back and even imprisoned his own daughter without his knowledge. He rescued his daughter from imprisonment and helped her through the birth of her second child. Due to the stress on her mind, body, and heart, she did not survive the process. She had only lived long enough to name her child. That child's name was Kagaya. Otsutsuki Kagaya. The patriarch made arrangements for Kagaya to be part of the Otsutsuki clan without anyone's knowledge after learning what the elders had planned for him, his daughter, and Kegyuin. In order to ensure Kagaya's safety, he staged a scene where it would look like his daughter committed suicide with her unborn child. With victory of the war around the corner, the elders had plotted and killed the patriarch. After Kegyuin won the war for the Otsutsuki clan, the news of his mother and grandfather's death reached him. Overcome with grief, he returned to the clan with much haste, but what was awaiting him was only an ambush. In his battle-worn state, he was unable to utilize his full power and was killed. And the reason he was killed was due to the fact that he carried the bloodline of the royal clan in him. The Otsutsuki clan then raided the ocular powers of the royal clan for themselves. However, they were not of the royal clan's blood, and so their powers and lifespan were not infinite. While they can live a long time, the lifespan of other beings in the heavenly plane were even longer. Compared to the royal clan and other beings such as my own races, the lifespan of the Otsutsuki clan was but a small fraction. And while they gained tremendous power by stealing the ocular powers of the royal clan, the drawback was that it would shorten their life. In order to combat this unexpected result, they began destroying and pillaging resources and energy all over the heavenly plane to create their so-called medicine. All creatures of the heavenly plane who did not bow down to them were annihilated. We call this event the Heavenly Purge. With their Byakugan and the ocular powers they raided from the royal clan, their strength was unmatched. Many in the heavenly plane lost their lives and homes to the greed of the Otsutsuki clan. My race was one of the most noble and powerful amongst those in the heavenly plane, however, there were not many of us. Outnumbered and outmatched by the many Rinne and Rinnegan powers they possessed, my race was annihilated. I'm afraid I may be the only one left of my kind in existence. After the Otsutsuki clan thinned out the resources of the heavenly plane, they had finally realized that the plane could not recover fast enough to satiate their greed. To solve this problem, they began descending to the lower realms and raided from those places when they became ripe with energy. The numbers of their clan are not infinite. There exists many lower realms, and that is why on average only 2 of their members are sent to explore a realm at a time. Kaguya was sent to this realm, your realm. She possesses the bloodline of the royal clan unbeknownst to herself and the Otsutsuki clan. These are the secrets behind the Otsutsuki clan. Because Kaguya has the blood of the royal clan flowing through her, so too do her descendants. Hagoromo, Hamura, the Senju, Uchiha, Uzumaki, and Hyuga. Those who possess the strong bloodline of the royal clan do not need to take the eyes of their brothers and sisters to gain the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, just as Hagoromo did not need to steal another's eye in order to obtain his eternal Mangekyo. And it is because of his royal blood that he was able to awaken the Rinnegan. But after Hagoromo, the bloodline of his descendants became too diluted, where not enough of their blood was pure enough to naturally awaken their eyes into the Rinnegan. Not even awakening the eternal Mangekyo was possible. This is why the Uchiha need the eyes of a close relative to further strengthen and accentuate the diluted royal blood within them to evolve their eyes to the next stage. The Otsutsuki clan do not naturally possess the Rinnegan, but they have over time learned how they could create it. After the fall of the royal clan, their last act in desperation was to disperse their power into divine trees, hoping that one day the fruited bears would provide the power necessary for another being to fight back against the Otsutsuki clan. Unfortunately, it took too much time for the tree to absorb energy and create a chakra fruit. On top of that, these divine trees were not auspicious. They had to first drain the lives and energy of countless beings before it would bear any fruit. The Otsutsuki clan, after plundering the resources of the heavenly plane, descended to the lower planes and discovered the scattered power of the royal clan, the divine trees. They began to wait in station around the divine trees on different planets and dimensions, as the trees will over time sprout chakra fruit that contains small traces of the royal clan's blood, which will allow the one who eats it to gain the eyes of the Rinne Sharingan or Rinnegan and extend their lifespans. I simply had a blank expression on my face as I was completely shocked at everything Senko had relayed to me that I didn't know what kind of expression I should make. I never could have imagined that the Otsutsuki clan had such a background. After taking a moment to let everything sink in, I frowned in seriousness. Senko, then, what happened to the heavenly plane? What about the Otsutsuki there? Since you mentioned them having a hierarchical system and they happen to be a clan, do they have a clan head? After all, according to your story, they killed their last patriarch. Senko nodded. All good questions. Yes. They have members in higher positions than others, just like a clan. And indeed, they have a clan patriarch. I am unsure of who it is at the moment, but they undoubtedly have one. And that patriarch of theirs is most likely situated on the throne within the heavenly plane. I don't know what state the heavenly plane is currently in, as I fled from it eons ago, but I reckon it continues to remain a desolate wasteland. I frowned even more as I took this all in. I looked down in front of me and saw the calendar noting when Naruto and Hinata's wedding was going to be inside. This is too much to take in. Just a few moments ago I was struggling to figure out how I was going to deal with granting people attendance at the wedding. But that all seems so trivial now after what Senko just told me. I closed my eyes and took a few deep breaths before turning back to look at the picture of Hanabi and I on my desk. Next to that picture was the picture of Team 11. I smiled as I thought about what Kimimaro and Haku were up to right now. Kimimaro's been spending a lot of time in Iwagakure. Seems he and the 4th Tsuchikage, Kuratsuchi, have been getting along quite well. As for Haku, after I took over as the 6th Hokage, I revisited Haiden, who was still held prisoner deep underneath the Umbu compound. After looking through his memories and killing him with my Rinnegan, I sent Haku on an S-rank mission in search for these other Jashin cultists. Not only was Haku successful in his mission, he had saved a young woman named Akane, who surprisingly was a surviving member of the Uzumaki clan. I left Haku in charge of overseeing her well-being. They both seem pretty busy now. Izaya? Senko questioned, snapping me out of my thoughts and reminding me of everything Senko had just told me. I just let out a soft sigh and whispered, well, no use fretting over it right now. I only need to do what I can do. And I should first focus on the tasks before me. All of this Otsutsuki stuff will have to wait. Speaking of Otsutsuki stuff. Flashback 3 days ago. 5 Kage Summit. A large fortress stood atop the land of a well-guarded area in Amigakure. This was precisely the Allied Shinobi Force headquarters. After its construction had been completed, the 5 great nations had decided to use it as the meeting point for all future 5 Kage summits. In this way, the shinobi world would not continue to interfere with or intrude upon the territory of the samurai. At the centermost point of the fortress was a large conference room where the 5 Kage sat around a circular table as their advisors stood behind them. These 5 Kage were Kumogakure's Darui, the 5th Reikage; Iwagakure's Kuratsuchi, the 4th Tsuchikage; Sunagakure's Gaara, the 5th Kazekage; Kirigakure's Chojuro, the 6th Mizukage; and myself, Izaya, as Kanahadakure's 6th Hokage. At this moment, a contraption above us began to move and project an image of the moon moving closer and closer to Earth as the large pieces of rock began to break off from the moon's gravity and enter Earth's orbit. A scientific researcher also began her very serious explanation of how grave the situation was becoming. As the researcher was explaining, she finally concluded, "I believe that parts of the moon's surface is breaking apart and entering Earth's atmosphere." We all frowned as Chojuro asked, "Then what will happen exactly?" The researcher had a grave look on her face as she said, "The moon will continue to completely disintegrate until nothing is left, as all of its being rains down over Earth. If nothing is done, then all of humankind may perish." Gaara furrowed his brow in deep contemplation as he said, "Is this a natural phenomenon? Or is it a man-made assault?" I closed my eyes as I searched through the memories of my past life. My knowledge of the Naruto universe is becoming limited. Things have greatly changed from what they were before, but some events are still happening. This must be Tonari's doing. This is the last major event in the Naruto universe that I have knowledge on. After this, I'll truly be in the dark. Well, not that it matters, as I have decided to continue doing things my own way. I'll face these problems and make decisions my own way. After completing my thought process, I turned to the other Kages and said, "My fellow Kages. To be honest, it is a bit unthinkable that the moon would begin to fall towards Earth so suddenly as an act of natural femininity. If I were to guess, I'd bet on this event as one being done on purpose with some sort of hidden agenda." The other Kages frowned in seriousness as they agreed at my analysis. Kuratsuchi then chimed in, "But who would have such power that they could cause the moon to fall?" A moment of silence passed between us before I said with hidden meaning, "If you truly think about everything that has happened thus far in the shinobi world, can you truly think of no one?" This elicited all the Kages to slightly flinch, as they all thought the same thing at that moment. Darui narrowed his eyes in seriousness as he replied, "The Otsutsuki clan." I nodded. "Correct. It must be someone related to the Otsutsuki clan." Kuratsuchi gritted her teeth and clicked her tongue in frustration. "Damn! And we have no way to approach the moon. Nor do we have a way to stop the moon's approach. What are we supposed to do then?" I let out a soft sigh. "For now, let us continue to monitor the situation. While the moon is on a track to collide with the Earth, we are not yet at a critical junction. If this is the doing of the Otsutsuki clan, then they must have some ulterior motive. I have a feeling they'll show themselves before long. If and when they do reveal themselves, that is when we make our move. If they don't reveal themselves before the critical junction, then there is still Sasuke and Naruto. It's possible that if Naruto and Sasuke pool together their chakra, then Sasuke might be able to correct the gravitational alignment of the moon with his Rinnegan. That will be our plan B. If that is impossible, then there is still Haku. He's been undergoing strict training to master Heavenly Sage mode. While he hasn't quite become a perfect Heavenly Sage, it is possible that he might be able to do something about this disaster. That will be our plan C. The other Kages let out a sigh of worry and frustration before nodding their heads. The meeting came to an end soon after. End flashback. Just as I snapped out of my thoughts and prepared to look over some other documents, I slightly flinched in surprise. I furrowed my brow as I took note of an intruder near the Hyuga residence. So, you've come at last. Tonari. I whispered to myself before instantly disappearing from the Hokage's office. Somewhere in the village, under the cover of night, a person dashed and expertly maneuvered around with great stealth and secrecy. This was exactly Tonari. As he quickly dashed around in search of Hinata, several other shadowy figures fell from the sky, dashing throughout the village. These were highly advanced and special puppets under his control. These puppets quickly made their way to the Hyuga residence as they searched for Hanabi. Hanabi stretched and yawned as she had just finished overlooking some political documents as part of her duty in preparation to take over the clan head position. I wonder what Izaya is up to right now. She pondered as she opened one of the many doors within the Hyuga compound. However, she was immediately startled at what she saw before her. There was a person cloaked in strange clothing right in front of her. Just as it stretched out its hand to grab her, she activated her Byakugan and shouted, 8 trigrams palms revolving heaven. Boom! She performed a quick rotation, creating a powerful chakra sphere to burst out around her, effectively thrusting the intruder through the walls of the compound and out into the courtyard. She frowned as she stared at the tattered form of the intruder out in the courtyard that was now in shambles. A puppet? Just as she completed her sentence in confusion, 10 more puppets appeared, completely surrounding her in their entrapment. She frowned and prepared for a fierce battle. However, before anyone could make a single move, a quick flash came and left. Hanabi simply widened her eyes in surprise and shock as she was now standing in the middle of the Hokage's office. Izaya? I smirked at her cute, startled expression and tapped her shoulder behind her. She quickly turned and embraced me in a tight hug, to which I wholeheartedly welcomed, but in the next instant she flicked my forehead. "Oh," I replied. She pouted. "You startled me." I simply smiled at her. "Sorry. I won't let anyone hurt you." She nodded before letting out a sigh. All right. I know." She smiled back and said, "Go, the village needs you. I'll get yelled at if I hog you all to myself." I smirked. "Okay. Be right back." I poked her nose before instantly disappearing from the room. At this moment, Tonari stood on a tall tree in the forest as he watched Hyuga Hayashi clutch his injured shoulder, surrounded by several tens of puppets. As he stared down at the injured Hyuga head, he said, "Do you concede?" Hayashi gritted his teeth without responding, prompting one of the puppets to create a giant orb of golden light and shoot it straight at him. Tonari had already sensed where Hinata's presence was and was just about to go to her after dealing with Hayashi. However, the scene before him didn't play out as he had expected. Right as the golden orb of light was about to hit Hayashi, it instantly disappeared, and in its place was me instead. Hayashi breathed out a sigh of relief as I turned to him and asked, "Are you all right, Lord Hayashi?" Hayashi smiled and replied, "I'll live thanks to you, Lord Sixth." I shook my head at his answer. "Please, there's no need for you to be so formal in front of me. It may be presumptuous of me, but I'd like to think that we are family." I then turned serious as I focused my attention back on Tonari and said, "Lord Hayashi, I'll handle it from here. Get some rest." Without waiting for his response, I placed my hand on his shoulder and teleported him to safety. Tonari stared at me with a bit of a surprised expression and said, "If it isn't the sixth Hokage. To think that you were able to find me so quickly? I wonder how you accomplished that. I made sure that I was undetectable. Even Konoha's barrier could not detect my presence." I stared indifferently at Tonari and responded, "Indeed, Konoha's barrier couldn't detect you. Even now I can't detect your presence. It's an impressive technique, whatever you're using." Tonari furrowed his brow. "Then how did you find me exactly?" At that moment the cawing of a crow could be heard in the sky. It flew in circles above us as it stared down at the village below. Several black chakra receiver rods were embedded in its body as its eye reflected that of my Rinnegan. Tonari frowned. Was it because of that crow? I let Tonari mull over his thoughts for a bit before asking, "You must be the one causing the moon to approach Earth's orbit. Am I correct?" Tonari slightly flinched at my statement. "Interesting. Your intuition serves you well." "Correct. I am the one doing so." "Why?" "Heh. I have watched from the moon all this time what the world of shinobi is like. The world that was left behind by one of my ancestors, Hagoromo. It has become clear to me that shinobi do not understand the meaning of chakra. All shinobi do is war with one another and cause endless suffering and grief. You speak as if humanity has made no progress. If what you say is true and you've watched events unfold from the moon, you would know that not only have shinobi banded together, we are now working towards stabilizing peace." "Peace? You call this peace?" "I have watched for a long time. This peace is only temporary. Soon the world of shinobi will war once more. And their abuse of chakra will be fueled by their innate desire of greed for power. It sounds to me like you are only making up an excuse to justify your actions. You sound just like Kaguya. Your ancestor Hagoromo and Himura fought with all their being to stop Kaguya. Even after Hagoromo passed away, his spirit remained and returned during the Fourth Great Ninja War to assist the allied shinobi forces in stopping Kaguya from destroying all of humankind and shinobi. You speak as if you understand the intentions of your ancestors, but I question whether you have truly taken the time to think about them. Why are you really here? For the moment, let us say that you truly believe that it is your duty to destroy humankind. You could have simply waited for the moon to crash into Earth. Why show yourself unless you have some other hidden agenda?" Tonari smiled at my analysis and replied, "Truly. You are a very perceptive individual. I don't need to explain myself to you. Hagoromo and Himura are my ancestors, not yours. Because I respect your intelligence, I will tell you why I am here before killing you. Long ago I was promised Hyuga Hinata's hand in marriage. I am here to take her away before the moon and Earth collide." I shook my head. "Do you truly think Hinata would accept something like that? You should know by now that Hinata and Naruto are set to marry very soon. They love each other. Your abduction of her won't change her feelings. She won't come to love you. Especially with the way you're doing things." Tonari frowned. "I am doing things according to Himura's will. And I am taking away what was rightfully promised to me. I love Hinata. Once she sees my devotion to her, she will come to love me as well. You are deluding yourself. I won't let you take her away. She is my sister-in-law. However, there is no need for you and humankind to quarrel. If possible, I would like to settle this peacefully. Take me to the moon. It is my understanding that the moon is where Himura's last resting place was. I don't doubt that he was any less powerful than Hagoromo. If that is the case, then surely his soul can also transcend time and space and allow us to communicate with him should we truly wish it." Tonari frowned. "You have a way with words, Six Hokage. I won't stand to listen to any more of your nonsense." He then turned to his puppets and said, "Kill him." I simply smirked, noting that Tonari and his puppets were all within range of my jutsu. The moment Tonari finished giving out his command, he instantly felt fear well up inside of him. A fear like no other. This fear stemmed from the fact that his soul instantly felt as if it had landed in the center of a cage filled with bloodthirsty raging mad beasts that knew nothing but murder. He was even more fearful because that was the last thought and feeling his mind and body could process before his entire being froze, completely still in time. All the puppets that had me surrounded didn't even have a chance to move as they remained completely frozen in time. I stood in the center of all of them with Muramasa drawn in my hands. After all this time my aura had finally completely mixed together with Muramasa where I had complete control over its power. The murderous aura and killing intent that Tonari felt was precisely because I had unsheathed Muramasa from its hilt. And the reason why everything had frozen perfectly still in time was precisely the power of my right Rinnegan, Kanagara no Michi. It was an extremely powerful technique that allowed me to freeze the time of anything within 5 meters of me for exactly 3 seconds. Of course the drawback was a 30-second time interval before the next activation was possible. It may seem like a 30-second time interval was short, but in a battle against extremely powerful opponents many things can happen in 30 seconds. Without wasting a second of time I expertly slashed out with Muramasa before quickly placing it back in its hilt. The murderous aura instantly disappeared and all the puppets were completely destroyed. And finally, time around me began to move once more. Tonari's heart pounded unbearably hard in his chest at the scene that just played out. One moment he felt extreme fear and in the next, that fear was gone. He couldn't understand what had happened. It never occurred to him that time was frozen for him and his puppets as all of his senses were also frozen. He simply recalled giving out his order and then feeling a fear like none other before that fear disappeared and all his puppets were destroyed. He glanced over at me noting that I hadn't moved a single inch from my spot and asked with a hint of wariness and fear, "What did you do just now?" I smirked as I replied, "I told you. I would like to settle this peacefully. If you take me to the moon I'm sure we can find traces of Hamura's soul. Why don't you make a final decision after that? As for the matter of Hinata, why not observe her a bit longer? If you truly love her then you would want nothing but for her happiness. See for yourself if she is truly happy being with Naruto. If she is, then I ask you not to disrupt that happiness of hers. However, if you insist." I nodded my head at all of the destroyed puppets before continuing, "As you can see I'm no pushover. If I must, I will defend the village and its people. And I will find a way to stop the moon from colliding with the earth. With or without your help." A deep silence filled the air as Tonari gave careful consideration to my words. In the end he frowned and conceded. "Very well, follow me." It wasn't long before Tonari took me to a large lake with a special spring inside. As we passed through it and ended up on the other side we stood along the edge of a cliff overlooking an ocean below as an artificial sun gleamed in the sky above. As I was taking the sight all in Tonari interjected, "We're here. This is an artificial climate created by my ancestors who lived on the moon." I nodded before asking, "Is there a village nearby that was used by your predecessors?" Tonari glanced at me warily before responding, "There is." "Do you wish to go there?" I nodded. "Yes. I believe if we are to find any traces of Hamura's soul it would be in the place where your predecessors lived." Without any more discussion I followed Tonari to an old and ancient city left in ruins from the passing of time and war. Tonari stopped in his tracks as we arrived and asked, "Well, we are here. How do you propose we summon the soul of my ancestor?" I looked around a bit before answering. "Give me an hour. There's something I wish to look for. It is essential for the process." Tonari furrowed his brow in confusion. "You speak as if you've been here before. How do you know whether whatever you are looking for is even here?" I simply smirked and replied mysteriously, "That shouldn't be your concern. What matters most is finding the way to communicate with Hamura." Without wasting time with more words I dashed off into the distance as I searched for the burial place of the fallen Otsutsuki clan on the moon. It wasn't too long before I arrived before the familiar spot of a large Otsutsuki crest in an old castle ruin. If memory serves, this is the spot where a path leading to the remnant graves of the Otsutsuki clan are. At that moment Senko decided to speak out. "HM. You seem quite sure of yourself. How do you know this place exists? And how do you know that it is possible to communicate with Hamura's soul here?" I shook my head. Let's just say I had a hunch. As for communicating with Himura's soul, that I'm still not sure of. I'm hoping that Himura will see how anguished his last remaining descendant is and help lead Tonari back on the right path by appearing before us and giving him guidance and counsel. Oh, quite the optimist, aren't you? And what if Himura does not appear and Tonari decides to attack you in a fit of rage for thinking that you tricked him? I shrugged my shoulders. I have no control over that. If I must fight, then I shall fight. But I do hope I can end this incident smoothly and peacefully. Senko simply smirked. Your plan seems a bit naive, but I can't deny that you gave it a try. If traces of Himura's soul is still lingering around, then you might be able to detect it with your Rinnegan. Good luck. I nodded. I placed a marker in this area before dashing out and returned before Tonari, who took notice of my presence. So, did you find what you were looking for? I nodded, which greatly surprised Tonari. I found what I was looking for. I'll take us there. I slowly approached Tonari and placed my hand on his shoulder as I teleported us to my marker. Instantaneous transportation, huh? This is how you can get around so quickly and undetected. What are we doing here? I cleared my throat before saying, please excuse my rudeness. The place we need to go to is actually underneath this place. I placed my hand on the ground and said, Earth-style, grand hole emergence. Immediately a giant hole opened up on the ground, revealing a long flight of descending stairs. Tonari flinched in shock at the revelation that there was a secret underground area here that he didn't know about. I quickly started walking down with Tonari following behind. As we reached the bottom, we were met with a giant underground cemetery. Tonari stared in awe as he stammered, This is the main branch family? It was at that moment a person slowly walked over to us. A person without eyes. It slowly stopped before us and muttered, Tonari? You've come at last. Without wasting any time, that person stumbled and fell to the ground, becoming nothing but a broken puddle of mess as an orb of purple light arose from its mouth. With great brilliance it filled the entire room in its all-encompassing aura that lasted for only a moment. However, in that moment Tonari's expression changed greatly. In but a single moment he had witnessed the memories of the past and met with the spirit of Himura. There was a deafening silence between Tonari and I for several long minutes before he turned to me and said in a dejected voice, I don't know what to say. All this time I've been alone on the moon thinking that I understood the will of my ancestor, but now, everything I thought I knew of turns out to be the exact opposite of the wishes my predecessors had wanted. What am I to do? I stared at Tonari for a moment before answering, You could return to Earth with me. Live in Konoha amongst us shinobi. You don't have to be alone, Tonari. Tonari mulled it over before shaking his head. I can't. I wouldn't know how to interact with you shinobi. I am too ashamed to stand amongst your kind. I shook my head in response. We have all done things that we are not proud of. Your situation is not yet irreversible. You still have the option to walk the right path. Tonari stared at me in deep contemplation before turning his head. No. I appreciate your offer, Sixth Hokage. You are beyond my understanding. You are greatly forgiving, yet can also be greatly fearsome. You followed me, a stranger, to an unknown place all alone without fear. I could have decided to ambush you instead. I am unsure whether it is because you are that confident in your abilities or that you had simply decided to place your faith in my word. Perhaps a bit of both. Whichever it is, I admire you for it. I will remain here on the moon, away from the world of shinobi. I have decided to watch over your world from here, in my shame and weakness. I see. Is there anything I can do to change your mind? Tonari shook his head. If you would please, I would like to take you up on your offer. To observe Hinata one last time and see if she is truly happy on Earth with the one called Naruto. I nodded my head as I followed Tonari out onto the moon's surface. We both stood there in complete silence for a few hours before I heard Tonari let out a deep sigh. He then turned to me and said, It is as you say. She seems happy beyond measure to be by Naruto's side. After a moment of silence passed between us, I was about to bring up the moon issue when Tonari quickly interjected, "I know. You need not worry. I shall reverse the movement of the moon and stop it from its collision course with Earth. Follow me." In but a few minutes we arrived at the place where a giant golden sun-like object was. Tonari pointed to it and informed, "This is the Tensigen. A combination of all the Byakugan collected from my predecessors. We used it to fuel the energy we needed to survive on the moon. I had activated it, causing the moon to move towards Earth. The only way to reverse this is to destroy the Tensigen. It can only be touched by one who contains the bloodline of Otsutsuki Himura." Without wasting time with any more words, Tonari rushed straight at the Tensigen and shouted with all his might as he attempted to destroy it. "Aha!" Tonari screamed as he fueled as much of his power in his attack as he could. However, no matter how much power he placed behind his attack, the Tensigen remained undamaged. I watched as he panted, catching his breath. Just as he was about to try again, I arrived before him and placed my hand on his back. "Sixth Hokage?" he questioned. I simply nodded and replied, "Tonari. Our meeting may have had a rough beginning, but it doesn't mean that it must have a terrible ending. If possible, I would like for us to become friends. Allow me to lend you some strength." Tonari felt a surge of warmth fill his heart as he stared at me, who acknowledged him and replied, "Heh. Very well. Then I won't hold back." And with that I fueled my powerful chakra into Tonari as he shouted and struck the Tensigen with all his being. Boom! In mere moments the Tensigen creaked and imploded as it was completely destroyed, releasing all the Byakugan into the surrounding area that made up its core. Soon after, Tonari and I returned to the surface of the moon as I took a sweep of the surrounding area and said, "Now, all that's left is to remove all the meteorites, asteroids, and debris that are already heading towards Earth from before." Tonari turned to me and questioned, "How are you going to do that?" I simply smirked and replied, "Watch." I clapped my hands together before raising them in the air. Immediately several dense gravity cores shot out as I said, "Catastrophic planetary devastation." Zinning! Immediately the dense gravity cores began sucking up the remnant meteorites, rocks, debris, and asteroids that were approaching Earth, sweeping them clean. I then controlled them to fall onto the moon, becoming nothing but large rocky terrain on the moon's surface. Tonari watched with incredulity as he said in disbelief, "Why, you possess the Rinnegan?" I smirked at his astonishment and simply shrugged my shoulders. "Well then, Tonari. This is goodbye. For now at least. Remember, you are not alone, my friend." Without another word I patted Tonari on the shoulder reassuringly before instantly disappearing with the Flying Thunder God Jutsu and arriving right back in the Hokage's office by Hanabi's side. I watched as she paced back and forth in nervousness and only stopped when she bumped into my chest. "Oof!" she exclaimed. She quickly looked up and without missing a beat she pulled me close. "You were gone for hours. I thought you said you'd be right back." I let out a soft sigh as I held her close to my chest. "Sorry to worry you. Everything's going to be okay now." She simply nodded her head and snuggled closer to my chest. "Min. The answer is yes." I raised my brow in confusion at her words. "What do you mean yes?" "I saw the ring box on your desk." I instantly panicked after hearing what she said. "I forgot to put it away before I left." However, she continued, "I don't care. Izaya. I don't need or want anything fancy or flashy. I just want you. I get it. I know you're strong. You're the strongest person I know as far as I'm concerned, but that doesn't make me any less worried when you rush off into danger. Who knows what could happen? What if one day you leave and never come back?" My expression softened after hearing her words and I held her even tighter. I had wanted to wait for everything to be perfect before proposing. I wanted to surprise her. I wanted to show off a bit. I wanted to tell the entire world how lucky I was to be marrying the most amazing woman in the entire world. I wanted everyone to know that she was mine. But as I held her in my embrace, in this moment, I felt a powerful stirring emotion within me. It was a feeling of pure simple happiness. Of love. And peace. Right. I was foolish. All I need is Hanabi. Just as she is. Right here. Right now and in my arms. I'm an idiot, Hyuga Hanabi. I promise to love you with all my heart forever. Will you marry me? Her heart felt as if it would leap out of her chest as she finally heard the words she had so much wanted to hear. Tears streamed down the sides of her cheeks as her entire being quivered in joy. Yes. Yes. I will. You're an idiot. But you're my idiot. And in that moment, we sealed our promise with a kiss. A kiss of our pure, honest, and simple joining of our union. And this journey was only the beginning. For the both of us. That's the finale. Thank you for watching all the parts and watching my videos. I truly appreciate it. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Peace.